All right, welcome in. McElroy and Cubelic in the morning. Skeleton crew today. Damien and I are going to get you through and get you set for college football this weekend. Got a good show for you today. Excited about it. We got to start previewing these games coming up this weekend. Josh Pate is going to hop on the show about 7:45, 7:40-ish, and he'll do a couple segments with us this morning. We always have Wimp at 9. Yogi Roth of the Big Ten Network going to hop on and preview this Alabama-Wisconsin game. What are we looking for in this game? I think there were some advantages with what Alabama got to see against ULM a week ago, specifically in the run game, that they're going to pretty much get some of the same stuff from Wisconsin. They got an extra week of practice to work on that stretch play and start to defend that, prepare for that, know what that's going to look like. And I think they'll have some inherent advantages with what they're going to see. You're going to see a fullback this week. I said it. And I meant it. You're going to get a fullback this week. Now, you got basically an H-back that acted as a fullback this past week. So, I mean, it's not going to be completely foreign. They've seen some of these looks. They'll have an idea of what it's going to be like. So, I honestly don't know what to expect from this game. I feel like it should be one that Alabama handles by 2 or 3 touchdowns. I feel like Alabama's defense should have a lot of success against this. Now, you'll still get some of the misdirection. You'll still get counter. You'll still get those splitters coming back across that outside zone play and inside zone play. You get some throwbacks, but quarterback still a little bit questionable. And offensively, I think Alabama, this will be one where Ryan Grubb says we want to go north and south. You saw a little bit of that last week, tried to get back to it last week to a certain extent, and I think you'll get some more of that this week. Speaking of questionable, some of the SEC injury reports are out. LSU, Florida, center Braylon Moore, he went out last week against Louisiana Tech. He is listed as questionable. Tight end Trey'Dez Green for LSU. He is a hybrid sort of red zone threat. Looks like an NBA swingman playing tight end. He's going to be questionable for LSU. Dallas Wilson, Florida wide receiver, out for the Gators. So some news that you didn't want to get here a little bit earlier in the week before we get to that game, that one of your weapons is going to be gone. Austin Simmons in the Ole Miss Arkansas game listed as questionable. I mean, I think he goes. I don't think that if it's – now, listen, we tried to explain this to some folks because I went back and, I had to search the depths of YouTube to find his film. But Ole Miss is actually, in my opinion now, if you're comparing it to a lot of other teams in the SEC, where they go next after Austin Simmons, probably not as in bad a shape as you would think. Trinidad Chambliss can play. D3 national championship winning quarterback last year. He's come in a little bit this season. He's 4 of 6. He's got good wheels. He can scoot. Now he's shorter. He's not going to give you the pocket presence. He's got 7 carries for 21 yards. He's going to be their sort of running quarterback anyway. A guy that gives them a little bit more mobility. They don't want to run Austin Simmons much. And we talked about this after that first game, the Georgia State game, how Lane and those guys told us, we don't want to run him. He's not really built like Jackson Dart, which I kind of agree. But also saying that, hey, we need to take care of him. And that's one of the reasons that they got Chambliss, which, by the way, we asked Charlie Weiss, how'd you find this guy? And he said, well, there's a recruiting guy named Mike Farrell that I follow on Twitter. And I saw him tweet out a video of this kid and said, I got a couple extra minutes. He's like, so I'll pull up his highlights. I start watching him. Then I find out he's in the portal, and we made contact, and that was that. But he's a pretty good player. So, do you want to have him going for the rest of the year? Would not be ideal because Austin Simmons, from a passing perspective, gives you a totally different dynamic of being able to, 1, layer the ball, 2, push the ball down the field. Now, we've seen him make some questionable decisions. We've also seen his offensive line get smoked at the line of scrimmage multiple times. So, and that's a little bit of a reoccurring theme with the majority of college football teams right now. I don't know what these tackles are doing to get beat inside all the time, but it's actually, I talked to Duke Manyweather last night, the offensive line specialist. He does OL Masterminds, and we were talking about some different tackles. And I told him what Ryan Grubb said about Caden Proctor. That he's just getting a little bit too cute. And said, Kalen DeBoer went back to him and said, hey, man, we need a fastball and a changeup. Why are we trying to have a screwball and a knuckleball and a knuckle curve and an off-speed pitch and a slurve and a slider? Some of these guys are getting a little too cute with the pass sets and trying to dictate what the defender does to them, and that's not how it works. That defensive end, that edge defender is usually reading one of two things. He's usually reading that back foot or that back hip or the play side shoulder, so the strong side shoulder. So if you're the left tackle, your left shoulder. That thing opens up, hip or shoulder or foot, they're going upfield. Or they're going right down the middle of you, one or the other. It stays flat and it comes out, get ready for them to go inside. Now, see, I personally think that's giving defenders way too much credit. I think the majority of it's predetermined. I think 95% of what defensive linemen do is predetermined. I mean, these guys are basically hunting dogs. Like, they know how to do one or two things really well. And once they get too old to do that, they just kind of sit and chill. Like, they don't. If you think that the read and react percentage of defensive linemen reading what an offensive lineman is doing and therefore he gets the win, like, let's not act like Dylan Stewart's getting to the quarterback because he's reading his keys. I'm not saying he doesn't have the ability to, but that's giving them just a smidge too much credit. Dylan Stewart probably runs a 4.5. That's why he gets the corner on tackles. Not because, well, he saw the hip open up. Stop it. They're way too much 100-mile-an-hour guy to be reading stuff anyway.
Right. I mean, he's got the God-given ability.
It's like telling me Whit Weeks is reading the pulling guard, and that's why he arrives at plays. The guy is just a scud missile. Hey, man, B-gap. Yes, sir. Phew, there it goes. That's what it is. Julius Peppers is sitting there reading a tackle.
No.
The guy's got an 80-inch wingspan. He's 6'6" and runs a 4.5. 280 pounds. He can run over you at any moment. Oh, by the way, he's quick enough to get around you. Let's not act like these guys are Einstein. But some of these tackles, man, it's like I got my one-hand stab. I got my inside hand stab. I got my outside hand stab. By the way, you're allowed to use both hands. I think a lot of them have forgotten that. I got to feel my way out with one hand.
Yeah.
That
quick stab. Give me that.
And they think if they set a certain way, it's going to force a defender to do something. You are wrong. Because if you're going to quick set these guys, which means you're going to set outside like right away and not get much depth, and you think that's going to force them to come upfield on you, and they had planned on going inside, good night, Sally. You're done. They are in your quarterback's lap immediately. So we'll see how it goes. If Caden Proctor can continue to improve upon that. I think it was Matt Miller tweeting out some of his stats, pressures he's given up early, but some of the stuff is easily correctable. It can easily be repaired. Speaking of offensive linemen, Tennessee defensive tackle Jackson Moy, offensive lineman David Sanders, both questionable. Now, the David Sanders thing is a little like we're going on week 3 now of, David Sanders isn't going to play.
Maybe it's a game time decision.
You know what I haven't seen? David Sanders play. I understand it's a little bit newsworthy, but let's not act like this is shifting the line here if a kid that's never played in a college game is that important. I need to see what he can do first before I start making headlines and graphics about David Sanders being questionable again. Kid might be amazing. He might be the next Trey Smith. He won't be, but maybe he will be. He has a chance to maybe be the other Munoz that played at Tennessee, but I'm not going to say that he's Chad Clifton right away. Let's calm down. But he is questionable. Ryan Williams expected to go for Alabama this week. So our understanding last week was a game time decision, and it just wasn't worth the risk of him playing. He was in uniform before the game warming up. He did go through warm-ups last week. Trust me, because my producer hit me on it 57 times. He's warming up. He's catching passes, Cole. Cole, he's running routes. Kevin, he's not playing. Cole, he's in his uniform. I'm on the field, Kevin. I can see him. He's in full uniform, though. He's not playing.
He's not playing.
They told me he's not playing. I don't think Kalen's going to lie to me yet. I don't think Grubbs is going to lie to me yet. I still trust him. I think he'll go this week, though, because you want to have him. And Jam Miller's the one to keep an eye on because he went through warm-ups last week, too. And he's one that I think he was closer to going than people were talking about last week. And if he goes, he gives them a little bit of a different gear. I think
he looked
good. Yeah.
Okay.
Which that's hard, man. To try and stay in game shape when you're dinged up is the zero gravity treadmill, and you get in the pool and put like the giant life vest on, trying to run sprints in the pool. It's just not the same, man. It's not the same as playing football. But he's the one back specifically with what he does catching the ball out of the backfield that gives him a little bit of a different gear. And I think you want him to have a couple of snaps before you get to Georgia, if you could. I don't think he needs to get in there and get 15 carries or anything or play 35 snaps, but he does make them just a little bit different. Ernest Green, game time decision. He's probable for Georgia at tackle. Now, this was supposed to be the year that Ernest Green sort of flipped it around a little bit, and we saw the 2 years ago Ernest Green. Now we just flat out haven't seen a ton of him this season. So if he's able to go, I think he helps, specifically against a defensive line that has played great football this year. Tennessee's D-line hasn't missed a beat. You want to be at full strength up front against that group. And I still go back. I did Pollock's podcast last night, and they were asking me about the Georgia offense, Damian, and I don't know. I haven't really gotten your take on it yet. I think when you are a heavy screen team and a heavy quick game team on top of being a run team with a little quarterback run, and then a large portion of your plays are play action, and you're not giving your quarterback a chance to just drop back and throw the ball, I don't get as, I guess, hate happy with my quarterback. Like, there's a lot of folks that are really mad at Gunnar Stockton. Oh, you can't hit this route. You can't hit that route. It was basically a defender untouched. And I think you're trying to work him in a little bit. He's still young. He hasn't been the guy. You want to kind of get him comfortable. A little bit of what Auburn did with Jackson Arnold last week. I mean, you didn't see them, testing things down the field 30 times. I'm just not as mad at Gunnar Stockton as a lot of Georgia fans are. I haven't been mad at his game. Has he missed some throws? Absolutely. So is DJ Lagway. So is Joey Aguilar. I mean, give me the QB that hasn't missed a throw yet, other than Ty Simpson against Monroe.
Fair enough.
All three Bama quarterbacks against Monroe. They didn't miss many.
That is a
combined.
Fact. I think the thing with Gunnar Stockton is, like you said, they haven't really opened it up for him to just let it loose. And to your point, like, when you don't have to throw it, 60 yards down the field, I can throw it 5 yards to Zachariah Branch and he can do the rest. Okay, well, we'll take that. And I actually appreciate Georgia going back to kind of the old way of, like, just how about we just hand this football off and make it easier when we do decide to throw the ball.
And it goes back a little bit to what Saban used to say about the RPOs. And everybody used to get mad because Alabama couldn't go 4-minute offense at the end of games. And there was a couple game stretch. I think it was 2 his last year where, it was a 10, 13-point game, whatever. And they tried to run it out. It was like a 3-and-out and a 3-and-out and a 3-and-out and a 3-and-out. And Saban said it great. He said, listen, you guys are mad at us for not being able to go out there and just mash people in the run game. But you know what our quarterback has the option to do on every run play? Keep it and throw it. And when you give him that option and he's as talented as that kid is, what do you think he's going to do? Probably not hand it off. So when we go through 100 reps in practice and 50 reps in a game and 139 of those were pulled and thrown, what do you think your offensive line is thinking after that time? They're probably not sitting there blowing snot bubbles saying, this is going to be fun, we're blowing this guy off the ball. They're probably thinking, hey, don't get too far downfield because when Devonta Smith catches this slant, we don't want 80-yard touchdown to be called back. That creeps into the back of your mind, man, and it affects how you play. So you can't just – I guess these Georgia fans just think that all of a sudden you can say, we're a drop-back team now. Hit the deep post. Well, number one, he hasn't had time in the pocket very often. And number two, how many just drop-back reps has he gotten? 5? So And I'm still just going to say it, man. I'm sorry. I'm on my soapbox with this year. This pull protection, I can't stand it. I'm over it. I don't know why people think it works. It doesn't work. It's never worked. It's not effective. I would have a plan specifically for that. And if I thought it was a play action down, I would pressure the edges and I would pressure the A gaps, because that you have to squeeze the A gaps, because one has to block back, the other has to sift down and get shoulder to shoulder with that block back. But the block back, you're turning your shoulders sideways to block back on him, and then you got to sort of work yourself around him. And then my guard's got to pull, and just like we talked about a moment ago, I got 320-pound guard with sleek edge defender that can either scream upfield or make a move inside or delay, then go upfield. And guess what he's looking at? The quarterback. So he's judging it based on the quarterback's depth, or when the quarterback's pulled up, and you got to then adjust to him. It's a very difficult ask. And I remember, I've used this example before. People got so mad at Braden Smith because Gus asked him 19 times in 2 years to pull out and block Myles Garrett one-on-one. Did you see Joe Burrow this past weekend? That didn't go well for him. No one blocks Myles Garrett one-on-one. But we're going to ask you to do it out in space while you're moving laterally, where he's got a two-way go, really a three-way go on you, because you're sliding out there on your heels, backing up. He could run over you if he wanted to. He's only like 290. I can't stand it. Every now and then it's fine, but for that to be like one of your primary protection calls, no, you can't live like that. You just can't do it. So we got a lot to get to today. LSU, Florida. What are the chances Florida gets this one? And I'm asking you this seriously. Would it be a big upset in your mind if Florida won it? I'm not really there with that. Now, I know the records and the South Florida thing, Vegas, but I just don't look at this game and say, there's no way Florida can do this. Ole Miss, Arkansas. Depending on quarterback, that's obviously going to factor in. How does that work out? This is probably Arkansas's defense first real test. What can Travis put together to kind of throw off whoever is at quarterback? And Austin Simmons has made some mistakes and some poor reads through a couple of games. Can they force him into a few of those? You would think probably. And Travis has been great with these one-off schemes that he comes up with to implement, kind of like Tennessee last year, where all of a sudden it's a new look where he's got a guy that looks like a middle linebacker that drops into a middle safety role, and the next thing you know, your quarterback's not pulling the trigger, and you're able to get home and make some things happen. Tennessee, Georgia, is this the year for the Vols? And then going back to Gunnar Stockton a moment ago, what looks like the glaring weakness right now? Tennessee doesn't have any corners. Georgia has all these beautiful weapons, but can't use them down the field. So can Gunnar Stockton find a way to throw the ball downfield? Because apparently people don't think that he's capable of that. I would say, can you protect long enough for him for those routes to develop? And can they hit those and take advantage of that? A&M, Notre Dame. Has A&M been fabricating this air raid offense specifically for this game? Have they not gone out and just mashed people because in the back of their minds they're saying, we're not going to do that against that team, so we better be able to throw the ball around a little bit. Let's go ahead and work that. And I don't know, other than giving it to Jeremiah Love a lot, I'm not real sure what the Notre Dame plan is on offense. I don't think you can push them. I don't. Now, maybe with some extra big bodies, you can find a way to get some guys misaligned and they can misplay some gaps and it can open some things up for Jeremiah Love that way. I know this, with the way Cassius Howell's playing, you don't want to live in third and long. Not with how Reuben Bain did your tackles in the opener. You don't want to live there in that neighborhood. And Kentucky's going to start Cutter Boley at quarterback. It's Eastern Michigan.
Is Zach Calzada hurt?
He left the game.
I did notice that.
The Cuban Cannon is apparently on the sideline.
That's what they call him?
I think he asked their SID if he could use that nickname, if I'm not mistaken. I might have misspoken. It was something along those lines. I do know that was an ask.
Hey, if you create your own nickname, it's fine.
No.
It's acceptable, I guess.
I don't think so. I don't think that usually works.
Okay.
Also, if you're going to be the Cuban Cannon, you need to be loaded and ready to go.
Yeah, absolutely. That's one way to put it.
Be off the shelf. All right, we'll continue talking games coming up this weekend. 800-239-9569 if you want to get in. Tweet in at Mac and Cube. Anything college football you want to discuss, we'll be doing it for the next 2.5 hours right here on Jocks. All right, welcome back in. McElroy and Cubelic in the morning. Appreciate you guys tuning in. 800-239-9569, 800-239-WJOX. You want to get in, talk some college football coming up this weekend, different matchups, different games, things going to go down. Let me know what you're thinking. And then, two, take a look at where some of these teams are heading into these games. And are you okay with what Vegas thinks about some of these games this weekend, specifically in the SEC? By the way, Oklahoma at Temple. You know, Temple is 2-0 right now.
I did know that. So,
also,
trap game?
No, I'm not going to say that necessarily, but maybe one just be a little bit more careful with. Evan Simon, I'll just throw this out there for you. Quarterback for Temple, 27 of 35.
That's efficient.
77% on the year, 422 yards, 9 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. Now it's UMass and Howard.
Guess who?
Yes, fair. But he also did it. I mean, all right. 20.5 for Alabama. Is that too much? Should Georgia even be favored? Missouri's got the Cajuns at home. They're a 27.5-point favorite. Texas has UTEP. They're a 41.5-point favorite. Ole Miss minus 7.5. Is that too much? This game's been weird. Does Vegas take that into consideration? Does Vegas take historical oddities into consideration? And if they do, how? Because it's all algorithm, power ranking based. I don't know how they could. But I just feel like that's a game, probably like Florida and LSU, that I would just always be wary of. We're throwing shoes. Our ADs hate each other. I mean, you just never know. We're throwing the ball backwards on 4th down and scoring touchdowns. Just those two always seem like maybe not. Maybe look at some other ones. LSU's a 7.5-point favorite at home. Notre Dame, 6.5-point favorite at home. I wouldn't really have an issue with that one. And South Carolina's a 4.5-point favorite at home against Vanderbilt. Some people saying they don't like that one. But I can tell you this, Willie B is going to literally be on fire Saturday night. That place is going to be a lot of fun. Let's go to Melvin in Birmingham on the Higginbotham hotline. Melvin, what's on your mind today?
Hey, fellas. Carl, I had a question for you. I know I've been following the Auburn offense, throughout fall camp. And Coach Freeze was saying a couple of times that, we need to fix some things, or he was thinking, well, maybe our defensive line is, just that good. But I guess we gave up some sacks against Ball State, but I know offensive line is your expertise, and just want to know what do you see we need to fix before we get into SEC play on the OL.
Okay. No, I appreciate your call, Melvin. Yeah, they went backwards a little bit against Ball State. It was kind of disappointing to see because I thought they did some things against Baylor that we have not seen in a long time. Physically, the way they acted against Baylor, we hadn't seen that in a minute. It was fun to watch, specifically the right side. And then also when Tutal Miller came in at right guard, he was fantastic. And that was an important series. Auburn needed to go down and score on that series. And you remember he came in for Jeremiah Wright, and he had a couple big blocks. And he comes in against Ball State and looked lost. A couple of really bad one-on-one losses. There were, I think a couple of guys were just out over their toes, getting a little bit overextended, not having certain patience in certain blocks that they needed to. Some of the combo blocks not working together, sticking together as long. Pass pro just looked a little bit lazy. That's why they got beat on a couple reps. So sometimes I think, too, number one, you underestimate your opponent. It's fair. Your mentality is just going to allow that. And when you hadn't been a group that's operated at a high level together very long, I get it to an extent. But this is the second game in a row that the tackles have really struggled with speed rushers and inside moves. And those go hand in hand because once a guy gets you around the corner, now you're thinking you got to get more depth and you got to get it quickly. Well, when you start retreating faster, that's essentially what you're doing in pass blocking. You're retreating. You're giving ground to gain ground. Then they're going inside. So that's why you got it's that perfect meet in the middle. And kind of like we were talking about Caden Proctor earlier today. Like, you can't dictate what that defender is going to do. That's why CYA is the most important phrase in an offensive line play. You got to worry about yourself and your group first. You can't dictate what a defense is going to do. But I'm gonna view it as a one-off. I'm gonna see if they can bounce back this week against South Alabama, which will be a better, more athletic defensive line. Ball State was really light on the edges, so they were screaming upfield. And Andy Burcham actually referenced it, something where they creeped up a little closer to the ball and were trying to attack things north-south. So I'm anxious to see how they do this week because, yes, it was a little bit of a regression from week 1 to 2, but it's not like a 3-game spread where they've been doing this, and think we got to be super careful of what they're going to look like in the future. 800-239-9569. You want to get in, text in 205-834-9450. Don, what's on your mind this morning, my friend?
Hey, good morning, Co. I want to follow up on Melvin's call. listening to Freeze the other day about playing new running backs, he talked about the center signals for a running back on pass blocking. Can you explain what he was talking about? I think the center makes the signals for the running backs in the backfield for pass blocking, correct?
Sometimes, yes. What happens, Don, he doesn't directly signify who the back will take, but the center will designate a point linebacker, and that evens up the defense. So wherever we're hot as far as the offensive line, we'll take, say, number 52 and then everything that direction. That puts the running back on the next linebacker, usually to the right, depending on the protection. Now, they're also an offense that relies heavily on slide protection, which puts the back to just one side in man on the line of scrimmage, which can become confusing. You saw a little bit of that against Baylor because you had some of the running back assignments come back inside. They get tangled up with an offensive lineman. They're not able to pick them up. So it's not always Connor Lew's responsibility to tell the running back who he has. It's more of directing him. We have him and then everything else that way. You're going to have to take the first one over or in man on the line of scrimmage. And that can get confusing because your defensive line slants out in man on the line of scrimmage. If he's some kind of a stand-up nickel outside linebacker, hybrid edge defender, he loops back inside. Well, that offensive line's going out. Back thinks, okay, I go to the end of the line of scrimmage and I'm there. Once again, we talked about this robotic nature in coaching nowadays. Like, you go here, and then a lot of these guys think, well, I was supposed to go to the end of the line of scrimmage. I'm good. Well, no, your guy came back in the A gap. You have to adjust to that. And not just pointing a finger at Auburn there, but there was some confusion with that. I'm not going to put it on Connor Lew to say he has to point out exactly who the running back has because that can change. It's not always just running back has 45, and then if he doesn't blitz, it's over, and he's good in pass pro. Not always the way that it works. Rich wants to chime in on the Higginbotham hotline. Welcome in, Rich.
What's up, fellas?
Not much. How you doing? It's just me and Damien here today, so nobody else is going to say anything. Sorry.
That's all right. That's all that matters right now, right?
Got it. Yeah, we're rolling.
Yeah. Last couple of weekends that I've watched the Auburn game back, and I listen to a lot of Auburn podcasts, they keep saying that Auburn really hadn't had an opportunity to throw deep. And I'm asking y'all, y'all got more knowledge than I've got on this aspect. Is it not the job of the wide receivers to try and make their opportunities and take a shot downfield? Now, I know protection has a lot to do with that. Timing has a lot to do with that. Or is it really a case that Arnold really can't connect or throw deep? Because we spend a lot of money to retain these guys and bring in guys that can make a difference, and we're just not doing it. And my concern is when we get to Oklahoma, we're not going to have the reps to push the ball downfield and get those explosive plays when we need to when that opportunity presents itself.
I think a couple of things have to happen, Rich. And I think it's a fair thought. Number one, you credit Hugh Freeze and the offense for not getting greedy and trying to force things down the field when they're not there. And then we were referencing offensive linemen not dictating things to the defensive line. The offense can dictate matchups to where it's more advantageous to throw the ball down the field. But if somebody's sitting there in two deep safeties, you don't want to attack down the sidelines because that defender that's trying to cover the receiver is going to have help there and be in a great position to make a play on the football. I think two things need to continue to happen. One needs to happen more. You got to continue to run the football because that's when usually you'll see a high-low safety that that low safety is coming down to run support. If you can start making him do that a little bit earlier, a lot of it is kind of what you saw Ole Miss do to Kentucky this past weekend. The way they moved their tight ends and changed the splits with the receivers, they knew what safety was coming down, and then they'd widen those receivers out. That's when they used the tight end to attack the middle of the field. That's something I haven't seen Auburn do enough of yet. And I get it. You're probably scared as hell to let the kid do it. He might be scared to do it. There's not a lot of quarterbacks in college football that like to do it. We mentioned Tua earlier. What did he do? He attacked the middle of the field a lot. Joe Burrow absolutely bludgeoned the middle of the field when he was in college. And defensive coordinators a lot of times don't prepare for it the way that they should because they know most of these kids aren't going to do it. They're going to look there and immediately say, nope, and they're going to go to something outside. I mean, just watch a college football game. How many throws do you see over the middle of the field in just a regular college football game? There's not a ton. Everything's outside, quick throw outside, down the sideline, out route, hitch on the outside, flare to the running back. 2-yard crosser.
Yeah.
They'll throw underneath over the middle.
Oh, absolutely.
But you go past 8 yards, that 8 to 20-yard range over the middle of the field, it doesn't get taken advantage of very often. And then a lot of times it's there. So I think Auburn, one thing they're going to have to do is prove that they will throw the football there. Now, your safeties, your drop linebackers have to be worried about that. Maybe your nickel's got to be worried about that. Then you run some scissors concept on the outside. Nickel's worried about the inside. There goes slot receiver up the sideline. Boom, you hit your deep shot. It all goes hand in hand, but there are some things Auburn's going to have to start forcing themselves to do a little bit more of if they're going to be able to find these deep shots on a regular basis. They will come, I promise you. They will, and some have been there. It's just haven't been as advantageous of a look as some of the intermediate throws that they've been going after and attacking. All right, we'll continue this conversation. Get back to your calls. Larry, hang tight. We'll come to you when we get back next right here on Jocks. Welcome back in. McElroy and Cubelic in the morning. Before we get to Josh Pate, tell you about our friends at Train. The heat and humidity is coming back. This is like the third, fourth day in a row that it's going to be mid-60s when you wake up. It will get into the 80s, but this weekend is coming back. It's going to be hot this weekend. Keep your family comfortable with an affordable Train cooling system. They've been recognized as America's most trusted brand 11 consecutive years. The official cooling partner here at Jocks. Find a comfort specialist near you at Train.com. It's hard to stop a Train. We'll go to Larry, and Josh Pate join us here in a few minutes. Talk some college football with him. Larry, how are you?
Hey, guys. Cole, I want to say this, and I've been in Birmingham all my life. I'll be 61 in January, and, man, I love the way you and G-Mac bring it, man. Y'all are passionate about what y'all do. Obviously, y'all both played, and I just so thankful to hear the insight and the wisdom and the acumen that y'all bring. Y'all inform so many people about the game on the details and the inclement details. But my question is this, Cole. I listened to you Saturday night at the Alabama Monroe game, but there's a lot of people talking. I saw an article about our right tackle. This was young man, Michael Carroll. I think he's a freshman.
He is, yeah.
And they're talking about he might be. I mean, you tell me. I mean, you know the O-line. You played it for many, many years, and I just wanted your insight on the young man versus the guy that we got now. I think the right tackle is from Tuscaloosa, I think, if I read it right.
I believe so. Yeah, we talked to the coaches about him for a while, Larry. I appreciate the call. Two things that are really cool about Kalen DeBoer. One, he and his staff, they're not afraid to play freshmen. And I understand that Nick Saban for a long time has not been afraid to do that, but this staff is not going to be any different there. If it's somebody that can help them, they're going to do their best to get them ready and get them in the game. Look at receiver, Lostez Brooks. He comes in the game, and that's not like a, hey, let's satisfy this kid. Let's make him happy. They legitimately think he can help them down the road. Like he can be a guy that grabs attention, that can take high percentage throws and turns them into explosive plays. I know Rico Scott's not a true freshman, but they think he can help them too. And then the other thing that's cool about Kalen DeBoer, and this goes back to the Geno Vandermark thing at guard last year. It goes in a little bit to the Austin Mack situation in this game, and y'all didn't get to see it unfold the way that it was planned. When we tried to explain it on the game, Austin Mack was going to get a series in the second quarter no matter what. Some people disagree with that. They say, hey, Ty Simpson's the starter, let him get his run, don't mess with it, whatever. But they believe that if you are improving in practice and you are practicing well and they notice you getting better, that you deserve some playing time. Now, that might not be half the playing time or 70% of the playing time, but they want to reward the guys that are playing well. And I think that's what you're getting at right tackle a little bit. One, your right tackle, Formby hasn't been lights out, hasn't been great. And then two, on the flip side of that, you got a young kid that comes in that they thought Mike could help him and has shown in practice he can definitely help him. Maybe not just from a depth perspective, but can be in there and possibly be the better option. So they want to get him some snaps. It's definitely a position to keep your eye on down the road because they think he might be a player and might be a player this year. We'll have Josh Pate join us next right here on Jocks. All right, welcome back in. McElroy and Cubelic in the morning. I did not know Michael Carroll, IMG Academy kid, apparently Dalestown, Pennsylvania. I didn't know where he was from. So I think Larry thought he was from Tuscaloosa, 6'6", 321, did some good things in that game against ULM. Josh Pate of some college football show out there, potentially on YouTube that you may have seen, joining us now on the Higginbotham hotline. Where are you on Alabama now after what you saw against ULM? Because you had them winning the national championship prior. A lot of folks had a lot of things to say to you about that after the Florida State game. Where is your mentality on the Crimson Tide today?
Wait, you're telling me that as you saw it, people who didn't man up and make their own predictions waited to see a result and then trashed someone else's predictions? You're telling me that's the world we live in?
That is it. That's the one. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay, well, that absolutely happened. Where am I? Well, you said I picked Alabama to win the national title in past tense. I've got to stand here. I've got quicksand up to my chest, mind you, after week one, but I've still got to stand here. I've still got to stand by it. So I look at it from the perspective of someone who hopes week one was, what is it called, an aberration? It was an illusion. It was a myth. And I don't know, man. I don't know. You and I talked about the UL Monroe game. What can they prove in that game? Well, they can prove that they got fire. They can prove they got some pride about themselves. They can prove that the competitive character being questioned by people, including me in some cases, is maybe a little unfounded. But, you know, in terms of being the caliber of team that some of us thought they were, I'm not sure they could have proven anything. They could have just bought themselves some more time. And frankly, I would say the same things about this weekend, although this weekend's a lot higher caliber opponent coming into town. But the moment they walked off the field in Tallahassee, did everyone not just kind of circle that game in Athens? I know there were other things to look for. You had that game last week. Like, you could probably talk an unhealthy amount of time on an Alabama UL Monroe game, but we're not talking about their ability to go 7-5, 8-4. We're not talking about making a bowl game here. So a lot of the stuff that you very, very accurately described as concerning, I would still say is concerning. The best I can do is sit here and maybe hope it's been cleaned up, which sometimes is a very overused phrase in football, but I'm still going to use it because I got nothing else right now. I hope it's been cleaned up, but I don't know that we'll find out. I mean, there's a world where it's really ugly this weekend and the concerns are, you know, re-escalated, but what if they win 42-10 Saturday? I feel great about that, but I'm still saying I feel great. All right, now let's see it against Georgia. Here's the fun part two to that, or maybe a 1A, 1B to that. And I'm a little guilty of this myself. We talk about Georgia as a constant because they've been a constant for so long. Alabama, under Saban, was a constant. You always knew if you had them on your schedule, you just assumed what they were going to have to face against Alabama. Well, we assume you know what you're going to get against Georgia. What if you turn on the TV and it's like 4:45 or 5 p.m. Saturday late afternoon, Tennessee's up 23-9 on Georgia? Well, what is Georgia all of a sudden? Kind of like watching them against Ole Miss last year, and they just get stoned in Oxford. What is Georgia? So I'm telling you, man, I think this entire league picture is about to be so hideous in a good way. If you just love entertainment and not knowing the outcome, this entire league picture is about to get thrown in a blender. I heard you talk about Florida-LSU. I'm kind of with you there. I think that spread's a little big. So that's a long-winded way of saying I don't know on Alabama, but I hope to find out soon.
So you and I, Josh Pate, joining us on the Higginbotham hotline, we had a pretty deep conversation about the SEC's the middle of the pack going into the season. And I think it's maybe more intriguing now. I'm interested from you how much that potentially has grown, because a couple of teams could have fallen out. You may allow a few teams, Mississippi State, Arkansas, to sneak in. I don't think they have the ceiling that some of the others we discussed did. Some people might throw Florida out. Alabama might not be top tier anymore. They may be middle tier. Texas may be middle tier now. If you were to sort of tier the league, because LSU didn't look great last week. They did some nice things, but they didn't look like tier one going to dominate the entire season team. Are there multiple teams sitting on the top shelf of the league right now, or has everybody maybe moved into this sort of middle of the pack?
The kind of way I'm looking at it's the latter. The way I'm looking at it right now is let's just keep the top tier static. Let's keep it the same as we will have always defined it. It takes a certain separation to be on that top tier. Well, I don't think that exists in the league right now. That's rapidly going to change. Maybe it's rapidly going to change. We'll at least get more information this week, next week, the coming weeks. Right now, I just look at shelf 2, and I say, guys, I don't have enough space on shelf 2. It's like clean up on aisle 2. I have no idea what to do with this. I'm also thinking about, and it's a little too early to do this, but I'm also thinking about whatever the bottom shelf is. Like right now, I mean, bottom shelves in any given year is supposed to be Kentucky, Mississippi, Vandy, some combination of that. You got Vandy this weekend. There's a reason they've sold that thing out at Williams-Brice Stadium. There's a reason people are circling that game. It's going to be a legit primetime SEC environment. It's because Vandy's really good. And so Kentucky, again, found a way to make Ole Miss struggle and crawl over broken glass to get a win last week. Now, eventually, attrition will play a big role in this, and eventually the season will get teams thinner and teams will fall by the wayside. But normally that's already the case. Normally we don't have one of those bottom shelf teams having, just taken down the defending conference champ of another league. And we do have that with Mississippi State. So I don't even know. Maybe there's a shelf 2 and shelf 3, and shelves 1 and 4 are just waiting for boxes to be moved accordingly.
One of those teams that at least has moved up in shelf 2, on shelf 2, I don't know if they're on shelf 1 just yet, would be Tennessee. And one of the big question marks I had was the physicality being the same. It appears it has been, specifically on the offensive line. Pendleton, Moy look like they're going to be guys that can fill right in, not really be an issue. And Aguilar's running the offense. He's operating the offense. And he's played in a lot of football games. So that gives him a big advantage of teaching someone, asking somebody to operate in a new offense. How far have you moved on Tennessee and what they may realistically be capable of this season?
I think as far as someone can move, having watched them play Syracuse and a directional school, I want to try and be careful with it because every year the dust settles on a Saturday and a statement has been made and you find yourself saying, why did I jump the gun? And I don't want to be the guy who had a little bit of doubt, a little bit of skepticism about Tennessee, and then I just went all in on results that, as it turns out, didn't challenge them like Georgia was going to challenge them. But, I think we could go about that game for 30 minutes. So I don't want to get into it right now. I think we're going to break, possibly going to break. But one way or another, we're going to get a really, really solid answer on that this Saturday.
Are going to break, and that's for a guy that hasn't lived in local radio and can just go as long as he wants on his own show. It's a great heads up there. Great awareness by you. You're that middle linebacker in the defense that just has an idea where the play's going. So we got that one figured out. Josh going to hang out with us, though, through the break, be back on the other side, and we will preview a couple of those games coming up, not just in the SEC, but in college football this weekend, next, right here on Jocks. Welcome back in. McElroy and Cubelic in the morning. Appreciate you guys being with us. If you need a new house, go see Gusty Goulis in the Gusty Goulis Group. It's easy. They've served more than 3,000 home buyers and sellers in the greater Birmingham area, over 855 star Google reviews. Just Google Gusty Goulis Group and you will see what they can do for you. Go to GustyGoulisGroup.com, button at the top right of your page. Smash that. Very little information. Tell you what your home is worth. Since 2012, Gusty Goulis Group recognized both nationally, locally as Greater Birmingham, Alabama's #1 team in homes sold. Call 205-542-1996. That's 205-542-1996, brokered by eXp Realty, or go to GustyGoulisGroup.com. I had to get that read in while you were on hold, Josh, and just make you wait for that one since we've had that conversation before.
I feel like the guy has built me several homes. I don't even live in the Birmingham area. Sometimes I tune into the show via the intranet, and so I am intimately familiar with all the advertising partners.
JocksFM.com is where you can do that. Get the app in the App Store. Watch us live on YouTube. Search Jocks945. Okay, we had a tweet into the show earlier when we were referencing a little bit about Florida and LSU. Jolly tweeted in and said, hey, at Cole Cubelic, your point about Florida, I get Napier has had failure to launch, but it's a new season, and USF is a gritty football team. Took Bama down to the wire twice. I believe I see it like you. Let's not sell on teams the first month of this season. I mean, Greg and I both picked South Florida to beat Boise. I think you did too. And I feel like we've given South Florida a ton of respect, specifically under Golish. And with Byron Brown coming back at quarterback, we knew they were going to have a good offense. This doesn't really have a lot to do with South Florida. This has to do with what I believe Florida really is and really has. Also, a little bit of what LSU might not be. Stylistically, I think this lines up a little bit better for Florida this weekend outside of their secondary versus the LSU receivers, but they got to block them up front. Do you see this game as maybe being a little bit closer? 7.5 maybe being a little bit too much for LSU at home against the Gators?
Yeah, I think a lot of the odds market priced in the crisis, freak out, burn it all down mode in Gainesville into that line, because that line really has no business being over a touchdown. But the thing with Florida, I'm hesitant to, cash out as well as you are. It's about the production versus potential thing. There's this team every year. Maybe it's Florida this year, but there's this team every year where I think something about them in media day season, and I'll get myself all convinced that they're going to do something. So in this case, it's Florida, and the potential there of their offensive line, I think, is very high. In fact, in this game, I think they have two-way line of scrimmage edge potential. I think their defensive front can wreck a game, because I'm still early enough into the season where I'm not totally sold on LSU's offensive line. I'm just like speaking it through, kind of speaking it into existence here. They should be able, if DJ Lagway's playing, again, in potential terms, like I think he can, they should be able to have really good balance there. They should be able to, in theory, throw Blake Baker one of his toughest assignments as a defensive coordinator all year. All of that's potential. The problem with potential, if it never becomes production, is it doesn't matter. It's kind of like if you zoom out on Florida to 50,000 feet, you can have all the right program philosophies and systems and sports science and strength and conditioning and nutrition. All that stuff's in place. You got great practice schedules in the spring. You put together a great roster through recruiting. That's just stock in the kitchen with all the ingredients. If you can't cook, it doesn't matter how stocked the kitchen is. If you can't produce, it does not matter how much potential you have. My concern with Florida is they've got all of the former, but if the latter piece is not there, the igniter, the thing that starts the fire, it doesn't matter how big the stack of wood is. So all of that potential, I still feel that way. I'm firmly with you. I still feel all of that exists. I still feel like there are many, many areas across the board Florida should give themselves a net advantage in this game. But what you've done, I don't care how good you think South Florida is. I got tons of respect for them. More respect than the AP, mainly because I've actually watched them play, unlike some of their voters. But I've got all the respect in the world for them. The problem with Florida is you weren't accidentally a 17.5-point favorite at home. All right, you got to win that game. There's no excuse not to win that game, and that's having complete competitive respect for the opponent. You know what your schedule is. You knew how daunting this task was to even try and go 9-3. That's affording you losing a quarter of your games. But in no scenario was the South Florida game one of those games they could afford to lose. So now you just got to walk a tightrope with virtually no wiggle room, very weak safety net under you. And you know as well as I do, if they lose that game Saturday, as tough as it is, it's not viewed as a one-game sample size. It's viewed in totality. It's viewed as a total referendum on Billy. And, as much as you and I sometimes talk about lack of patience, lack of this, lack of that, he's had patience. They've given him time, and this is not a fairy tale world. You get paid a lot of money, and if you've been given time and you're at a program where they expect results and you were given sort of a stay of execution a year ago, you've got to get the job done.
Josh Pate joining us on the Higginbotham Hotline. Josh Pate's College Football Show. You can catch it on YouTube, catch wherever you get your podcasts. Let's take a little bit of where that conversation was, not having a lot to do with it, though. The Clemson Tigers this weekend will travel to Atlanta to play Georgia Tech. It's an early kick. Tech gets it at home. Looks like Haynes King's going to go. Some real concerns, not just after the LSU game, but with this Troy game. I always take the ones that are delayed, kind of like Georgia last week also. I always think we need to take a little bit of a further step back with those games because things become so different and convoluted, and you're in, you're out, you're off, you're on. It's not the same. And when football players get out of their routine, things don't always go well. So where are we on Clemson right now? I had them winning the national championship, so you and I not too far apart on those picks so far. Specifically heading to Georgia Tech to play a team that's just a headache to face either way, specifically when you're on defense.
I have found myself 3 weeks in sort of questioning Clemson's identity. I don't question they know what they want to do. I question whether they can execute it. I don't necessarily question that about Georgia Tech, and I have no doubt that Haynes King will play this weekend. I think he probably could have gone last weekend if they needed him to. So, look, you got to have one or the other. If you're Clemson, you got to be able to tell me you're going to have a reliable ground game this week, or you got to be able to tell me you're going to make them respect the deep ball. Very, very rarely are you and I talking on Monday or even Sunday about a game someone won, and you say, hey, man, they won, but they couldn't really push the ball down the field. And I say, yeah, and you know what else they couldn't do? They couldn't really run it all that well either. Because there's not a whole lot left to be gained if you can't do one or the other. My concern with them is they can't really do either consistently. Now, matchup-wise, especially if you get Antonio Williams back, and I don't know what his status is, but with or without him, frankly, they should have the personnel against this secondary, which is very middle of the pack from a personnel perspective for Georgia Tech. They should have the personnel to do some business through the air. It's kind of like watching LSU a little bit last year. The concern I have for Clemson this year is kind of like watching LSU last year. Nuss is a good quarterback. He's not so good that you can tell him, all right, we're not going to be able to run the ball. We need you to throw it 45-plus times today, and we're just going to rely on that for the win. Well, that's a little unfair position to put someone in, unless they're just this transcendent generational talent, and I don't think he is, and I don't think Klubnik is. So if Cade's put in that position, 36-5 touchdown to INT ratio last year, all of a sudden gets inverted, and that touchdown ratio goes down into the 20s, and that turnover ratio goes up into the low teens, and someone asks, what happened to him? Well, what happened to him is you ask him to do too much. And I wonder if we turn on this game, we're approaching halftime this Saturday, are we singing that tune? Is it 10-6 Georgia Tech? Is it like a repeat of the Troy game, and you're saying, oh, here we go again. We need some heroics in the second half. Because eventually that's not there, because eventually the opponent is not inferior. And while I'm questioning the identity of one team, like I said, I got no doubt the other team knows its identity. They're going to be outmanned a little bit, but not enough to where you can go in there and mess around. I think the market spoke when this thing opened at 6.5 or 7.5 and dropped to 3.5, by the way. So that defense, though, for Clemson can completely flip this game with turnovers. I always think about that JT Tuimoloau game against Ohio State up in State College a few years ago, where he just took the game over. Yep. Ohio State needed defense to take the game over. He took the game over. Well, Clemson could do that.
Josh Pate joining us on the Higginbotham Hotline. That game down to 2.5 points in certain spots now, so will be an interesting one. I want to go with the top of college football because we kind of went with the top of the SEC, and I thought the most recent national championship odds that came out were intriguing for a couple of different reasons. And when you look at the teams that are atop some of the rankings, it doesn't necessarily match the odds and who's most favorable to go win a national title right now. And that's okay. That doesn't have to align, but it's an intriguing look. Like Ohio State, have they gained a lot of momentum with you? Are they stagnant with you? Are you high on Ohio State, higher on Ohio State than where you were coming into the season? The win against Texas was great, but I do think that what that game actually was on the field is being a little bit clouded by all the conversation about Arch, and is Arch injured? How did he pull? He panicked in this game. He didn't look great. Ohio State was fine, but they didn't look like necessarily a dominant football team in every facet. We're not going to get much from Grambling. Where are you on the Buckeyes right now? Totally agree. Couldn't have said it better myself. Yeah.
My bad. I had you muted. I make great points, though.
Yep.
Trust me.
Amazing points.
And I'm not going to repeat them. You should just be picking up what I'm putting down. You remember when Georgia opened against Clemson last year in Atlanta, and that 34-3 result sort of rattled the landscape, and it became this talking point of, all right, it went from, all right, who can win a national title to who could possibly beat Georgia? And it was like that for a couple of months. Now, unbeknownst to the world, Georgia was en route to a 10-2 regular season finish. But 1 week of results against the team you thought was really good in Clemson, it just jarred you. And I think a lot of folks got jarred by this performance Ohio State put on the field against Texas, not really knowing what Texas is. I'm not saying Texas is going to fall off a cliff or anything, but I think the odds you're talking about, like Ohio State being the favorite to win it all, that's just a byproduct of to win it all, you've got to get in the tournament. And there are very few teams that are a bigger virtual lock to get in the tournament right now because one of their most losable games has already been knocked down as a win than Ohio State. But just to make sure people understand out there who are listening, the next team on the odds board I'm looking at right now is Penn State. And I don't think anyone in their right mind who has viewed Penn State football over the years just believes Penn State's got as good odds to win the title if they get in as an LSU or as a Miami even, or as an Alabama or as a Notre Dame. But they have a virtual certain path to the playoffs. I'll tell you one that I think is a little underpriced right now, and that's Miami. Miami's sitting there 2, 4, 6, 8. They are the 9th team on the odds board to win the national title, and there's no proof of performance. Okay, Mario hasn't even made the playoffs, so that's a long road. I'm just looking at talent profiles of teams. I'm looking at how many different ways they can beat you. I'm looking at lines of scrimmage I can trust. I'm looking at a quarterback I can trust. I'm looking at a solid ground game. I'm looking at difference makers up front, guys like Reuben Bain that could change a game fundamentally. I don't know that many teams have that combination, and Miami does. Miami's got that combination to the point where if Ohio State had that combination, I think the talk would be kind of like it was with Georgia last year at this time. Who could possibly beat them? But because it's Mario and Miami, and I'm not even saying this is undeserved, but because it's Mario and Miami, people are still looking at it saying, oh, you got to prove it to me. You got to prove it to me. That's fair. But, everyone's unproven until they prove it. Ryan Day was unproven last year until he proved it, according to some. But as for Ohio State, yeah, I'm high on them, but that is not a flawless team by any stretch. It's not them versus the field in the Big Ten by any stretch. I still think Oregon's got a lot to say about that, but it's hard to say a lot right now because they haven't played anyone. Game at Penn State looming, by the way. Penn State with a bye and a home night game against an Oregon team taking the quarterback on the road for the first time. That should be fun.
I don't think there's any doubt about it. All right, I want to talk about a couple other teams towards the top, and we mentioned that with Miami yesterday. What, plus 2,500 right now to win the national title, with specifically with the upside that's there at receiver, on the defensive line, at running back, and then of course quarterback. The offensive line is just going to get better. That just feels like worthwhile money if you're looking for some kind of a long shot odd to win a national title this year. We'll talk more about that and some games coming up this weekend, including others in the SEC with Josh Pate next, right here on Jocks. All right, just a couple more moments with Josh Pate on the Higginbotham hotline. Matt Zennett's reporting that current expectation is backup quarterback Danny O'Neal will start for Wisconsin against Alabama. Billy Edwards working back from an injury that he suffered in week 1. O'Neal, if you were not aware, at San Diego State last year, 63%, 2,181 yards, 12 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. He is 35 of 46 this year with 4 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. To change your opinion, anything, Josh, on what Wisconsin might be capable of against Alabama or what it does for Bama in this game?
Yeah, can he run?
I think he is less mobile, but had 93 rushing yards last year in 11 games, has 24 this year in 2 games. So I don't think that's what he's built for.
Yeah, answer accordingly. No, it does not change my opinion all that much. You will not get analysis deeper than that on any show today, I promise you.
Bam, there it goes. All right, a couple quick ones coming up this weekend. When you look at Tennessee and Georgia, I think the big question, Tennessee corners, Georgia passing game, who can make it go, who can maybe either patch it up or just make it work better than it has been this season. How do you see it?
All right, last year, I think Tennessee thought 2 things. They were wrong on both of them. I think they thought they had the edge at quarterback, or they hoped they did, and Carson Beck just thoroughly outplayed Nico. I thought it was Carson Beck's game of his year. 11-1 edge on throws of 15-plus yards. Number 2, they thought they had a better ground game. And while it wasn't a decided edge either way, Tennessee, the 2 misnomers about them, not to you, but to the country, is a team like Georgia out-physicals them. Well, that's not really the case. This was like the hardest-hitting game I watched from field level last year. It was brutal. Number 2 is they don't run the ball. It's just a pinball offense. That's just indicative of people not watching Tennessee. So I agree with you. The biggest single matchup or mismatch here should be the Georgia receiving corps against Tennessee's secondary. I may specifically zoom in on the star position, but you don't even have to do that because you got 2 backup corners out there as well. I just think football is about matchups, but it's also your ability to take advantage of a mismatch. If there's a mismatch there, but at quarterback you don't really possess the ability to take advantage of it, which I heard you talk about earlier, what does that do to the game profile? Well, it leaves it very much in doubt. And I also wonder, if for all the talk about Tennessee having played inferior competition, well, I didn't see Georgia open against Texas either. So, I mean, they looked horrible last week. That's okay. They've looked horrible a million times and come out firing on all cylinders when the conference play hits. I just I'm not a believer that because you have not done something, you cannot do something. That's dumb. So I don't care how many years Georgia's beaten them in a row. That's because Georgia's had the better team and executed better. So if Tennessee, I don't care if they have the better team talent-wise, but if they execute Saturday and if they cover up mismatches and then expose 1 or 2 of their own, they win the game. And I think if they can hit any kind of semblance of a deep ball or establish that early, that they have not done in the last several years. Like they flat out have not stretched the field on Georgia in several years. And it's just compacted the field. Anytime you watch someone beat Kirby, anytime you watch someone beat Saban at Alabama, there are always about 5 or 6 plays, downfield passing, and even if not 5 or 6, there's enough of a threat to where it fundamentally changes how they have to play you defensively. If they get that early, they get another 10-0 lead like they had last year, I'm not so sure that thing doesn't go Tennessee's way. My philosophy on this is that's all well and good. I'm going to be proven wrong by Kirby Smart losing a game like this than be proven wrong by him winning one. So until further notice, I'll I'll sort of cede the floor to Georgia and look at Tennessee and say, but it's yours to take. You want to prove me wrong. It's your time to do it.
Josh, I know we were going to hit a couple other ones, but I know you need to run. Always appreciate the time. Great stuff as always. Give me your winner quickly, though, South Carolina Vandy, and then tonight on your show, I'm going to tell you the one thing that decides that game.
That's a great idea. Since I can't stay longer, how about you just come and you loiter on my show tonight? I'm taking Vanderbilt outright.
Ooh.
I'm very, very, very terrified of the spot. Not because they're sneaking around, because they're flat out a team that can do it.
Okay, there we go. All right, catch up with you later. Thank you, Josh.
All right, man.
Josh Pate, find his show on YouTube. Find his show on podcast, wherever you get yours. It is one of the best college football shows out there. Not putting on the top,
No.
but it's up there.
It's a reasonable.
It's up there. It's a good one. All right, so we just heard from Matt Zenitz reporting that it looks like Danny O'Neal is going to be the starting quarterback for Wisconsin. What does that do? What does that change? Does that make a difference for this Alabama defense and how they're going to be able to attack the Badgers? We'll hear from a couple of coaches around the SEC about their games when we come back next right here on Jocks. Hey, shout out to your Academy commercial that you did the read on there in the break. Because when I'm buying my shoes, the first thing that comes to mind is, do the people know I run trails? Can you imagine the shoe salesman, how they feel? That's a good fit, comfortable. Yep, you're like moving back and forth. Okay. Is there it's too snug in the toe? No. They fit great. Well, what's the problem? I just, looking in the mirror here, I just don't know. Do the people look at me and say, now he runs some trails?
Listen,
because if not, these aren't for me. I got to let the people know with my footwear, I'm running some trails.
Like I'm trying to find, some Jordan 3s or something. It's like, do these look like I run some trails, big dog?
Yeah. The salesman, I will say, second and third thing that came to mind is could run some trails, but you're right. Off the top, definitely doesn't scream that guy's been on the trails, or at least is going to hit the trails later today, one or the other. What do you need when you're purchasing your shoes? What are you looking for today? That I run trails?
It's great ankle support.
Okay, well, the cross-country shoes are over there. That's not my section, sir. Go see her. Listen, if the people don't know I'm running trails with these, I don't want them. Why else would I get them? You just go to your CBD store instead. You might need some help with sleep. You might need some help with weight loss. The Trim by SunMed on the shelves now at the largest brick-and-mortar CBD retailer in the world. Your CBD store, first company to have USDA-certified organic oil supplements. They've got the stamp seal on those products. Therefore, they're going to meet and achieve a certain set of standards and tests before they're signed off on. If you have arthritis, anxiety, your CBD store can help. If your pet does. I've told you guys before, we had a couple of dogs in our household that had trouble getting around. Your CBD store helped them get back to normal, be able to move around the house, up and down the stairs just a little bit better. 3 locations, Highway 280 by Bailey Brothers, 150 by the Cajun Cleaver. Trustful just off 459, Your CBD store, skincare, gut health for you or your pet. Your CBD store, where good health hits home. All right, let's continue rolling on about some of these games coming up this weekend. We still have the Coach Web Sanderson coming up at 9. That's in 30 minutes. Yogi Roth is going to talk Alabama, Wisconsin with us. He calls Big Ten games for Big Ten Network, so he'll have a better feel of what that game's going to look like, specifically now with Danny O'Neal being the starting quarterback in there for the Wisconsin Badgers. I will say this, up front offensively, they're not bad, and they're going to mix and match how they hit the perimeter with the run game. You'll get a couple tosses in there, so you got to play across some down blocks. You're going to get the stretch play, which is easy to get out of your gaps, and there's going to be cutback lanes galore with that. Don't think the running backs are dynamic. Don't think individually they're overly problematic. They do get good help from the tight ends in the blocking game, so keep an eye on the edges there. They're going to try to slow this game down. They're going to try to shorten the game. I have no doubt that that's going to be the thought process and the mindset of Wisconsin coming into this one, specifically with what it appears to be the weather coming into Tuscaloosa this weekend, an 11 o'clock kick. Not going to be a comfortable one for anybody that's there at that game. And I think that'd just be another reason that the Badgers probably want to look to drain some clock as much as humanly possible. But I don't really see them being a true threat if Alabama shows up and plays the way that they need to play. If they're firing off the football, striking and shedding, using their hands, staying square, if those kind of things are taking place, don't let the eye violations get you, because Grimy is going to give you a jet sweep motion here and there. He's going to give you a splitter on the zone stuff. You're going to have some quick rollouts. You're going to have some sprint outs. You're going to have some throwbacks. All those kind of things are going to be there. So defensively, have to stay home, have to play fundamentally sound, assignment sound, because there are ways that this offense can break you down if you're not aware of the things that they can do. But I think Alabama will be comfortable. I think you get a couple of guys back from injury. I think that sparks a little bit more life. You'll be at home again. You'll have Tim Keenum on the sideline again, so you have some of that leadership that's there and able to be effective, unlike it was against Florida State. I'm not super concerned about it. And I did want to go back and discuss kind of the South Florida thing from earlier in the show in reference to Florida and what maybe they can do in the swamp. I think South Florida's a good football team. And you saw Boise bounce back in week 2, kind of giving a little more credence to what South Florida did in week 1. I'm not downplaying South Florida by saying I think Florida can hang with LSU. First and foremost, I think it's styles make fights. LSU chooses not to run the football. What does that allow Florida to do up front? They have some twitchy guys. If Caleb Banks is healthy and raring to go, that can be a problem. LSU's offensive line hasn't played clean football. You're down one of your weapons, specifically in the red zone, offensively. Your center might not play in this game. Uh-oh. Now, I also think the scheme, and it's a lot of what we just described with Wisconsin, in which Florida wants to run the football, was essentially designed for this. Sort it out. Stretch play zone scheme was designed to sort it out. What's LSU going to do? Slant, run through gaps, blitz, pressure, scream off the edge, have guys that are going to pinch inside with the replacing linebacker over the top. All the movement, all the things they're going to do. If you said you could have one play to sort out what LSU does offensively, what LSU does defensively, when you're on offense, it would be some sort of a zone scheme play. I don't want counter. I don't want power. I don't want ISO. I don't want to draw. I don't want zone read, which the zone part of that would help a little bit. But I don't want my quarterback sitting there trying to figure things out with the way that they attack. I don't want Jack Pyburn with a free run at my quarterback. I don't care if he has the ability to hand it, keep it, throw it, jump, duck, whatever. I don't want that. I want to hand the ball off with a track on the outside butt cheek of the offensive tackle with the ability to cut that thing back behind the opposite tackle and make you defend all of it. Because one thing that makes it hard to defend when you have that many options is playing 100 miles an hour east, west, or north, south. Because then you make our job a little bit easier. I can get you reached, or I can keep washing you down if you slant the direction that we're going, and my back knows how to cut off that. This should be a heavy Jaden Baugh, Jacoby Jackson plan for Florida. If it's not, Billy's got real problems. This is not a DJ Lagway drop back game. Not against that. Not with what you've been in pass pro at times and with what that defense is. I mean, Patrick Payton can get it. Jack Pyburn can get it. Harold Perkins can get it. The Weeks brothers can get it. And they've been better inside than I thought they were going to be. Like 88 can get after you. I didn't expect him to be playing this well on that LSU defensive line. But you start going sideline to sideline, east and west, with a back that has the patience to wait and then get north and south, and Jaden Baugh can take a pounding. Jacoby Jackson, like a little jackrabbit in there. Like, he's got juice. That's the plan here if I'm Billy. And then I probably go, even though your tight ends aren't great, give them some 2 tight end looks, widen that surface even more to where you have to line up outside my tight ends, and that helps my cutback lanes. You can't not defend the perimeter. You can't just give me the edges. You have to widen a little bit. And I'll be interested to see if Blake Baker dials back the aggressiveness just a little bit here, because he hasn't this year yet. I mean, it was full tilt against Clemson. It was full tilt against La Tech. There was no slowing down at all. But this one could be one where you look at it and say, all right, maybe we let some things come to us and don't necessarily take all the fight to them.
And that's why I was going to ask about Jaden Baugh, because you've been high on him coming into the season. Do you think, because you've had this discussion going back to Tank Bigsby about just the zone play, and do you think because he's able to kind of get the reps that he's been getting, does it kind of, because he's 230, almost 235. So, like, do you want to lean on him carrying it 20, 30 times a game and kind of necessarily slowing it down because of what LSU offense kind of possesses, because they're able to score rather quickly? Do you expect Billy and those guys to kind of chew this game down to make it a fist fight, essentially?
I think you have to. Because of your secondary. Honestly, your secondary is a massive question mark. You don't want the game to fall into their hands. You don't want this to, and specifically with the LSU, it's not just us, it's those receivers. I mean, they got guys. They can catch the football. They can catch and run after they get the football. They got guys that can win one-on-ones and routes. I mean, they're dangerous on the perimeter. I don't want that kind of a game. And Jaden Baugh gets it. He knows it. He has the patience. He has the vision to run that play. He had 2 or 3 that were really close last week, like one shoestring tackle away from being an extra 20, 40 yards. And that's all you need is Jack Pyburn to squeeze down just a little bit more. Harold Perkins to overrun it by 2 steps. Hell, sometimes 1 step with some of these things. And then they do have the ability to come back and hit you with a counter play or a bootleg to try and get them moving one direction. I mean, there's a lot of misdirection stuff that Billy can hit you with. The intermediate passing game at the end of the day may end up being more important than all of these run schemes I'm talking about, because on your 3rd and 4s, on your 3rd and 5s, maybe some 3rd and 3s, when they are stacking it up and they are going to be aggressive, that's where DJ's got to keep 1 or 2 and just hit the tight end right quick. Like, boom. Take the underneath stuff right now. You get a crosser that's uncovered, take it now. Let Trey Wilson run. And that's going to be your recipe to win this football game. They've got to limit LSU's possessions. Because I think if you flip it around and you put the pressure on LSU's offense and they think they have to press to go score, then Caleb Banks and those guys may be able to get after Nuss. And we know what he's not going to do. Run. So.
But they did. If you when you go back and watch Clemson, they actually ran the ball consecutive times, I think, more than 3.
More than on per play the 19 they did all of last year?
Right. So they're trending upward.
Yeah.
If they keep it
well,
this
they were
pace.
also in a spot where they had to hold on for dear life late in that game. So, yeah, you handed a couple of times. And you got the freshman running back going last week a little bit. Got to see what he's capable of doing. But I just think specifically in this spot, let's say if Florida is able to begin to slow that game down, which direction do you think that goes? Hand it off consecutively more or air it out more? I think we all know the answer to that.
Yeah. It's going to air it out.
And this ain't going to be a 14-10 game late third where all of a sudden LSU says, let's start to slow this thing down. Absolutely not.
But why do you think that is, though? Like, if you're in that offensive meeting room and say you're Brian Kelly, why is it such a difficult thing to actually just say, hey, we're going to run the ball? Because it's not like Garrett Nussmeier is going to, take the green grass when he has it, because he's kind of shown that he'll much rather air it out. But why do you think it's such a, I guess you'd say, stubbornness to not actually just say, hey, we are going to run the football? No ands, ifs, or buts about it.
The only thing I can imagine, Damian, is when I asked Mike Denbrock about Logan Diggs when he was healthy, and he looks a little bit lighter this year for Ole Miss. I don't know if he's going to get back to being the back that he was at Notre Dame or LSU. And I said, Coach, every time this kid touches the ball, man, he's a freaking hammer. How do you not get him the ball more? And he kind of sat back in his chair and he laughed a little bit. He said, you're right. He probably should carry the ball more. The problem is I got a guy named Jaden Daniels and a guy named Brian Thomas Jr. and a guy named Malik Neighbors and a guy named Mason Taylor. We're probably going to let them eat.
Right.
Noted, Coach. Bad question. Next. I just think you look at Aaron Anderson, Barryon Brown, Xavier Thomas, even Bauer Sharp. We're not allowed to say that he's gotten better as a blocker. Don't say that. You're not allowed to say that. When they did have Trey'Dez Green, Chris Hilton Jr., with Garrett Nussmeier, you probably sit there and say, these are our playmakers. These are our best players. Your best players win games. And your offensive line's a little bit new together. They're probably not great at opening up the run. So let's go let that out. The other part, they probably trust Garrett Nussmeier more than anybody on this team. Maybe other than, say, a Whit Weeks. But offensively, who do you trust more than him? Nobody. Even if he does throw it to the other team every now and then. Like, he's your guy. So you're going to ride him. But when you do those things, it makes it difficult to then go back to, like you stated, in certain points and times in certain games. This may be one of them. I mean, if this thing's 14-10 with 5 minutes left and you have the ball, do you want Nussmeier in the pocket? And let's say Caleb Banks has been teeing off. I don't want that. I want to get out of here with a win by any means necessary and just survive in advance at that point. I don't care how many passing yards he has. I don't care how many catches our guys have. I don't care if they're happy or not. We need to survive this, get out of here with a win, and get on to the next one. And then you got Tyreek Sapp sitting there teeing off on the edge. You got George Gums teeing off on the edge. I don't want to live there. No. But when you don't do it and you haven't been there and you haven't repped it and you haven't placed the emphasis on it, you can't all of a sudden just become that team.
Okay, so in that same mindset, do you look at Texas A&M doing that? Like, do you think that they're kind of looking in a situation where it's, oh, we have Cravers, oh, we have KC Concepcion, but you also have 75 running backs that you can literally just hand it to and say, stop us if you can.
And the offensive line that looks like they can do it. Well, they haven't been able to give them the chance this year. We're going to start getting that soon, by the way. If they keep going the direction they're going, A&M fans, our offensive line can't run block. Well, how many times have they been in an evened-up formation? And by that, I mean the running back is not to a side of the quarterback in shotgun, which your run plays are limited there. They just are. And you can run same side counter, and you can run quick toss and all this stuff. That's fine. Those plays have a lower percentage chance of succeeding because of the numbers game, because the defense can lean to certain things. They can tilt certain ways. it's a fascinating question, Damien. And I look at that game. There's a part of me that wonders this personality flaw that it appears as though A&M has offensively right now is because of this game. Is because they look at this game and they say, our offensive line might be pretty good. Our backs are great. Is that the style fight we want to get into with Notre Dame? And the weird part about that is Notre Dame's corners are good. But maybe they just don't think that they can go into this game and push Notre Dame around. Because let's be honest, how many teams have the last few years? Even when they were decimated at the end of last year, when your best D tackle was out, and you had multiple D linemen dinged up, one of them essentially wearing a boot, and Georgia couldn't push him around. Penn State couldn't push him around. Ohio State, even a lot of the runs that they got was on the perimeter. I mean, they didn't attack right at them for the majority of that game. So I think that there has to be, one, let's also think about NIL era. You got to keep your receivers happy. It's a real part of what Freeze was doing. It may be a real part of what A&M's doing. You know, Craver, Concepcion, probably two of our best players. Keep them happy. Keep them interested. Keep them wanting more. Because we're going to get to a game where we have to have those guys. And I know that sounds ridiculous, and it's kind of like, what? But it's just where we are. It's where we are. But I don't know if they feel like Young, Heinisch, those guys, Rubio, that they can just push them. And I think that's the style fight Notre Dame probably wants. I mean, I watched Cassius Howell last week. I don't want my quarterback, who's still young and somewhat inexperienced, having to live in the pocket against that guy with what Elko's going to do on defense. Don't want that. This is a Jeremiah Love game. And maybe A&M's looking at it as it also could be, we'll go in thinking that, but if we have to revert to this, at least now we've repped it. And we've been there. We know what it's going to look like and how it can be. So you get that value from now knowing your quarterback can at least be that guy for a certain amount of time if you have to break out that game plan and go that direction in South Bend. We'll add some value here. We do it each and every day on Jocks. I'll introduce you to our friend and wealth advisor, Tad Hill, your trusted retirement planning partner. Tad is a co-host of the Retire with Freedom radio and TV shows in Birmingham and Huntsville. Also designated by Forbes as the #1 financial securities professional in the state of Alabama multiple years running. Tad, what do you have for us today?
What I'd like to talk about today are two very specific retirement planning challenges that most people are going to have these days. And that is, when do you take Social Security? When is the right time for you to do it, your spouse to do it? And also, do you have a pension decision to make? Now, not everybody has a pension decision to make, but if you do, and you're trying to decide, do I take the annuity? Do I take the lump sum? If I'm going to take the annuity, do I do 100% spousal, 50, 0%? And then just the whole decision around how do I make sure that these sources of income are augmenting my retirement the way I need them to. And then we've got to figure out how to take your savings and turn that into the income that you need to add to those other sources. We can help you figure these things out. I would encourage you to come to a course or come in for a visit. The way to do that is to text Jocks at 205-988-0006. That's 205-988-0006.
This is a paid placement. Investment advisory services are made available through AE Wealth Management. For more information about Forbes rankings, visit Forbes.com.
All right, welcome back in. McElroy and Cubelic in the morning. Peeling through some of these games coming up this weekend, taking a look at maybe how these matchups will play out, what we're looking for, what we're expecting. We mentioned Florida-LSU. Billy Napier, Florida head football coach, discussing what he sees that sticks out from that LSU defense.
Got good players at all three levels. Obviously, a lot of new players. Players back from injury, and then certainly a lot of portal additions. But Coach Baker does a great job, having played against him a number of times. He has an identity, and they do a nice job mixing it up, front pressuring coverage. And in general, they perform well here 2 weeks in a row. So it's going to be a challenge, and there's going to be a ton of individual matchups all over the field, and we respect what we see on the tape.
So there you go. Billy Napier expects a tough matchup across the board when LSU is on defense. When he is on defense, according to Matt Zenitz, Caleb Banks, who has missed the first two games, is set to play this week. You have to imagine this is one that they've been saving him up for. And even if thought he could potentially go last week, make sure he's in there ready to go this week, because he's a guy that can be a disruptor. He can win one-on-one pass reps. He can be a problem in a lot of ways for an LSU offensive line that, one, might be down Braylon Moore at center, and two, has not been elite up front on the offensive line and protection in the run game yet anyway. So could be sort of a double whammy there with how they're going to take that on. Brian Kelly feels like his team still has a lot to prove this week against the Florida Gators.
I know our guys are excited about it. They didn't feel like they played to their standards last week, but still dominated the game in every fashion. And so now it's an opportunity for them to be the elite performers that we believe they are. So they get that opportunity now to prove it.
So that's Brian Kelly on that matchup coming up this weekend, LSU and Florida. Another big one this weekend. The coach, Web Sanderson, joins us in 8 minutes, and we'll have Yogi Roth to discuss Alabama, Wisconsin in our final hour of the show, is going to be Tennessee and Georgia. And I feel like there are a couple of emphasis points with a lot of these games, the bigger games this weekend, that come down to simply one thing. And I think this is one of them. You look at Georgia's quarterbacks and how they've attacked things down the field. Gunnar Stockton has not had a lot of success down the field this year. Now, that's been, in my opinion, for multiple reasons. I think, one, Mike Bobo's trying to ease him in. I think Mike Bobo wants people to respect the perimeter. So you got a lot. You're hitting heavy screen game, heavy quick game, and defenses are going to have to play up and play out. What does that do? It opens up the traditional run game. Now, they've been great with gap scheme runs on the perimeter. Drew Bobo had a couple big blocks last week. You saw a couple different Georgia linemen in week one be able to get out in space. Are they setting teams up, maybe setting Tennessee up, to try to widen things out and be able to run between the tackles? I don't know if Tennessee's the team you want to try to prove that against. Because Bryson East and some of those guys inside, if Jackson Moy does play, they're rugged inside, man. That D-line is not one to be toyed with. And they're not as twitchy in the pass rush as they were a season ago, but they still got guys that can get to the quarterback. I think we look at it and we say, okay, can the Georgia receivers attack these young Tennessee corners? Well, what's Tim Banks going to do? He's going to protect his corners. If you think he's bringing 9, 10, 11 in the box to stop the run, you're crazy. That's not going to happen. What's going to happen here, and the sound effect is there for dramatic effects on what we're discussing. What's going to happen here is Tim Banks is going to play back and out. He's going to protect his corners. He's going to try to let his defensive line win the game. And this game comes down to Gunnar Stockton's legs. How many direct quarterback runs does Georgia call? What does he do when he needs to, wants to, has to leave the pocket? Do those turn into positive plays? Do those turn into negative plays? Do those turn into turnovers? Do those turn into first downs or touchdowns? To me, that's the difference in the game. It's easy to sit there and say, oh, this is Georgia receivers versus Tennessee corners because they're young, they're inexperienced, they haven't played, they don't have depth. Gunnar Stockton can't throw it past 5 yards down the field. That decides it. No, that doesn't decide it. The things that you've never been good at don't decide games. The things that you're good at decide games. Nobody goes into a game and says, let's lean on the things we're terrible at, guys. It's not real. Army doesn't go into a game and say, this is a 45 pass rep game. Get ready to air it out, boys. What?
The receiver's going to be tired.
No.
We've never done this before.
You think Nick Saban ever said this is going to be a coverage game, guys? No. Get to the quarterback, dominate the line of scrimmage. It's just not real. That's what I think decides that game. And do I think Tennessee has real opportunities in this game? Yes, I do. You have a quarterback that's taking care of the football, that's not playing high-risk ball. Now, do I think Tennessee just runs the ball against this group? No, I don't. I think 52 and 44, 0 have played pretty good up front for Georgia. You saw Ella Mendoza start to get into the mix last week, a little bit on the edge. He'll provide something different. Raylan Wilson playing fast at linebacker. So for Tennessee offensively, it may be a little bit more of a down-the-field game because I think Georgia is going to do their best to stuff the run, take the run away. Watch the tight ends for Tennessee because they'll insert, they'll split, and when they leak out, Aguilar's been pretty good at quickly distributing the football to them. Tennessee tight ends, I think, when they're on offense, are going to be massive in this game. Those guys if we leave this game and they have 8 to 10 catches for 85 combined yards and a touchdown or two, that could be the difference that I kind of look at in that one. But we still got more to go. More games to preview next hour, and we got to talk to the coach, Web Sanderson, next right here on Jocks. All right, welcome back in. McElroy and Cubelic in the morning. Appreciate you guys tuning in. It is Thursday, September the 11th. Happy birthday, Pop. 9 a.m. as we enter hour number 3 on Jocks. More big games to get to coming up this weekend. But before we do that, he joins us each and every week. Thanks to our friends at Coke and Piggly Wiggly. It's the coach, Web Sanderson. Coach, how are we doing today?
I want to tell you this to start this show, and I didn't know if I was going to have the opportunity to say exactly what I wanted to say, but I thought, and I'm not wanting anything by saying this, I thought you were terrific in the booth the other night. I thought you were really good. Now I know there's a lot of times that you're on the field. So and you've gone in the booth a little bit more, but I thought you really did a terrific job. I mean, I thought you were good. Y'all worked together well, and I thought it was really good. So I wanted your fans or my fans or whoever. I don't have any fans, but I thought you were really good.
Thank you, Coach. I appreciate that.
I wanted to say, and I mean that. I hadn't said that to anybody, but I just thought about it. I think, and if you go to Alabama, as big as the linemen are, it's a very good question for you. They're more difficult to block. I think the question comes here: Can they be blocked? How do you block guys with this size up front? Is that more of is that worked on or worried about in practice during this week? I think that's an interesting question.
No, it is. And size is not always indicative of being good, as you know. And I'm sure you played against some guys that were extremely tall or massive in the paint, but they couldn't move. They couldn't make shots. They couldn't make free throws. So they weren't as problematic as some people would have thought. Specifically with this group and how they're going to operate the perimeter run game, because they're going to block back and pull around, and then they're going to try to reach you a lot of times. And quickness, staying in your gap, sometimes can be a little bit more important. Keeping those offensive linemen off of you and not allowing them to climb up to the second level can be more advantageous than just what you do to blow somebody up in front of you. So it can be a benefit, but I don't think this Wisconsin team's trying to run right at them like we've seen some in the past. This is going to be one that tries to get outside a little bit more. And by doing that, it's not just if you can fill gaps or take on double teams all the time, in which they're going to have success with.
Well, I think it's interesting to me. I think Ryan Williams needs to go ahead and play. I think if I'm talking to Ryan Williams, I say play. That's all I say, play. I think Greg's not there today, but I think they do everything they possibly can not to throw into double coverage. Now, you get double coverage when you have been as good as he has been in the past. So you got to play harder. You got to do things better. The quarterback coach is not darn sure not wanting them to get interceptions. So there are players who get money and play hard for a while, and then take things up for a little bit easy. I'm not necessarily talking about him, but I think coaching wise, you have to be careful of that.
No, it's fair.
Thoughts on that?
Totally fair. No, and it's you go into certain games with obviously game plans and there are emphasis points in different areas for each and every game. And so I think for this game, for Alabama, the emphasis points will be more along the lines of understanding where you need to be as opposed to necessarily how you get there. So understanding what gap is yours. You got to make sure that you don't lose contain. You got to make sure that you force a run to bounce or spill a run instead of just trying to dominate the offensive lineman in front of you and look cool or look good or feel good about yourself. There's going to be a lot more setting things up for other people against this run scheme. And sometimes guys don't like to do that. Sometimes guys aren't into that. I don't think Alabama's had a real problem with that this year, but there are a lot of groups that you watch, Coach, and I mean, you know it from a basketball perspective. if you don't set the screen, we're not going to be able to get a good shot off. If you do, then we're probably going to get a good shot off. And that, to me, is probably a little bit more advantageous and important for what Alabama's going to do this game specifically because of how they're going to operate.
Well, I think in going into the players' meeting, Coach DeBoer said it's us against the world was a good statement. I think probably us against the world, former players complaining, and sometimes alumni never happy after the first game. I think it's us against the world probably could have been said prior to the Florida State game. I think you play a little bit. Of course, I'm a mental guy who thinks you got to play mentally and be good mentally. But I think us against the world kind of situation could have been said even prior to the Florida State game. Maybe they would have played a little bit more harder. Switching over real quick to Auburn before I get off of here. And I don't know what you've said. Hadn't had a chance to hear it today. Auburn quarterback, from what I can gather, is better than people thought. When he played at Oklahoma, they had Oklahoma injuries one after one after one. But I think when you play an in-state rival, which I'm not really big for, to be honest with you, I think you need to mash them. I think you got to be darn sure the team's ready to play, but that would be certainly because I think the recruiting comes into play a little bit. I know it does a big bit in basketball. It doesn't much in football, but in basketball it does. It did when I was coaching. So playing them, talk about the quarterback situation. I thought the blocking was really good at Baylor. I don't really have any comment about the second game.
Blocking was good at Baylor. It went backwards just a little bit against Ball State. Level of opponent and probably everything that went into that Baylor game. A little bit of that is to be expected. It's got to be cleaner next week. Of course, it's got to be the cleanest next week if you're going to beat Oklahoma. It's the best D-line in the league, in my opinion. Yeah, and they're probably going to score a little bit, so you're going to have to score some points. It's an interesting thought of the Auburn quarterback being better because I think most of us that have watched him coach and had an understanding of what happened, we definitely knew he had it in him, but there were some mental obstacles, some mental hurdles that he was going to have to get past and overcome to allow his talent to be shown as a quarterback in a college football game. And like you said, offensive line banged up, lost his top 7 receivers, I think. Top 2 running backs were out. He had an offensive coordinator that had never coached quarterbacks. That guy got fired. New offensive coordinator comes in, and guy coaching him, his position was also gone. You had a defensive-minded coach, which Greg's laid out perfectly here on this show, the difficulties that sometimes come with that. There were so many things working against him. And, oh, by the way, he had only started one game. He started the bowl game and, had a different offensive coordinator for that game. The guy that was his OC for that game prior to that had left to go be the head coach of Mississippi State. So there were just a lot of things, not to mention just the pressure of a young man that is now on you to go be a college quarterback at a major program. He has shown us some signs here early. There's a long way to go. I don't think he's by any means a finished product, but he's progressing. He's letting go of the football. Accuracy, I don't think is where they want it to be or where it needs to be just yet, but I think he's got a chance to be a good player. And a lot of that's going to have to do with his teammates around him. Like you said, the offensive line protecting. They haven't been great in protection, continuing to run the football. Other players stepping up, making plays. Like tight end play has been really good, specifically in the run game. All that stuff's got to continue. They're beat up at running back right now, so they can ask him to run more. I don't know, moving forward. We'll see.
Before I get out of here, I want to ask you one other thing. Georgia has nailed Tennessee since 2017. At Tennessee, with a quarterback who has been a surprise, if you want. I guess you'd say surprise. Maybe it's better than people thought, although they turn it over occasionally. Georgia is a team that has lays in the bushes with 2 wins every year, and then knocks you naked and hides your clothes, the way they play. Talk about this game for our listeners and for me. My biggest problem is home field advantage in basketball. Home court advantage. I get all worked up over the home team. I think Tennessee's well coached. Georgia's well coached. Your thoughts to our listeners about that? You probably already talked about it, but you hadn't talked to me about it. So
yeah, we've talked about it a little bit, Coach, and I kind of laid it out in our previous segment that I think a lot of people in this game are going to understandably and easily go to, okay, Tennessee's down a bunch of corners, and Georgia has good receivers but has not been able to utilize them down the field. That's what decides this game. I actually disagree with that because I think Tim Banks is going to try to protect his corners. Therefore, he won't have multiple players in the box. He's going to allow his defensive line to try to win this game because he thinks they're good enough to do it. And if that's the case, and you have lighter boxes, and it's a little bit crowded to try and push the ball down the field, I think the quarterback's legs decide this game. Now, some of that could be leaving the pocket, deciding to throw the ball away, leaving the pocket, protecting the football when he does, converting third downs, finding touchdowns, getting them into field goal position, getting scores. But I don't think that the arm of Gunnar Stockton decides this game. I think his legs decide this game. And that doesn't mean he has to run 20 times for 152 yards and 2 touchdowns. It's just when he does decide to use them or is asked to use them, is that going to end up being a net positive for Georgia or a net negative for Georgia? Because their defensive line can be a problem, and they can negate that themselves. And by the way, they probably have the fastest linebacker in the league who can negate some of that himself. So there are real issues that Tennessee's defense is going to pose, even with young corners on the field that might not be able to stick those wide receivers in man-to-man.
Well, one other thing, I'll just get out here, and I will. Do we know, because you're so good on evaluation, do we know how good Arkansas is?
No, but I'll say this. I do think it's good that people are starting to pay a little bit more attention to them. I know how good Taylor Green is, and the receivers look better than we thought they were going to look. And they have a very athletic defense. They have a good stable of running backs. They have a very athletic defense that has a lot of hybrid players, which is going to give Travis the ability to do different things. So I would look for some sort of a one-off defense this week. And it could have been something that maybe he played a little bit of a long time ago with a different twist on it because he's got a guy that can do a thing different than one guy couldn't the last time. But they're not going out there running base defense. I can promise you that. And he's either going to go into this game and say, we can get to the quarterback, we're going to hit him and force him into mistakes, or he's going to give you something from a coverage perspective because he's a little more concerned about the run game because Ole Miss running back can go now. And that'll be the issue. But it's going to be different. And you go to the Tennessee game last year, completely different look he threw at them. And Tennessee didn't handle it very well. So they didn't move the ball a whole lot. So Travis has got guys that can play safety, linebacker, nickel, D-end. They can move around a little bit, do a lot of different things, and they're fast. They are really fast. So maybe you just look at it as our linebackers are fast enough to help with enough of the perimeter run game. We got to go get the quarterback, and we're going to figure out ways to do that. If that's his mentality heading in, I don't know what it's going to be.
Yeah,
but they are. I would say yes to answer your question because most people don't think they're very good at all.
Yeah, the defense coordinator is making a lot of money at Ole Miss on what they're doing.
Well, he's good.
Got a pretty good contract.
He's good. He's a good coordinator, and he doesn't get enough credit for how good he is. Even last year, everybody thought, oh, they have draft picks. Okay, well, I've seen defenses have draft picks before that weren't great.
Yeah, that's right. Well, I appreciate you having me on, and I hope things go well for you this weekend. And Piggly Wiggly is outstanding product. They have an outstanding product in Coca-Cola. But Piggly Wiggly is outstanding people themselves. They do a terrific job of doing everything they possibly can to please you, and they have everything from the meats to vegetables to anything that you might want. So go by one of the 9 Piggly Wiggly stores in the area. People are listening to our show and get some Coca-Cola, and I appreciate you having me on.
Thank you, Coach. It's always great catching up with you. We'll do it again next week.
Thank you.
All right, that's the Coach Web Sanderson joining us on the Higginbotham Hotline. We want to go back to a couple of these games. What are Kirby Smart and Josh Heupel saying about this matchup this weekend? We'll hear from them when we come back right here on Jocks. Welcome back in. McElroy and Cubelic in the morning. Thursday, September 11th, 9 to 18 a.m. right here on Jocks. We're going to continue talking some of these SEC games coming up this weekend. Hear from a couple of coaches around the league, their thoughts on their opponents for their games. Tonight, 6:30 on ESPN, 2-0 NC State, 2-0 Wake Forest. From All Legacy Federal Credit Union Stadium? All Legacy.
All Legacy.
Hadn't seen the tape on that one. But hey, 2-2-0 teams going at it tonight in college football on ESPN. Robbie Ashford this year, 33 of 50, 445 yards. Passing, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, 25 carries, 105 yards on the ground. So we'll see against an NC State team that had to squeak one out last week if he can get it done again tonight. That is your college football for this evening. Also on Prime, you get the Commanders at the Packers. Those two teams both started 1-0. So we'll see how that one plays out as well. All right, games coming up this weekend. Before we get back into those, I'm going to tell you about Train because the heat's coming back this weekend too. Keep your family comfortable with an affordable Train cooling system. They've been recognized as America's most trusted brand 11 consecutive years. They're the official cooling partner here at Jocks. Find a comfort specialist near you at Train.com. It is hard to stop a train. So mentioning a little bit of Tennessee and Georgia. Kirby Smart on the Tennessee running back room and the problems that may pose.
Well, they're well coached. Their backs have always done a great job of being patient. They read things well. They allow their blocks to happen. They are not a quick just hit it and go, or they really trust their blocking schemes, and they're patient, which can be hard as they find holes and they look and they don't try to go east and west all the time on you. They like to go north and south. And they get their pads set. They break a lot of tackles. So it's a talented room. It was a talented room last year. I think that's a lot of what their offense is built around is the yards after contact and how those guys churn out extra yards.
All right, so that's Kirby Smart, and I agree with him. These running backs, Star Thomas and company, might not be as dynamic as Dylan Sampson was last year, but patience, vision, riding blocks, pressing the line of scrimmage, understanding the scheme, they do a nice job of that. Now, this is a little bit of a different defense you're getting this week. Like, this is Syracuse played hard. They had some tough guys in there, but now you're going to get the size with the physicality and some speed on top of it. This will be different. There's no doubt about it. Josh Heupel knows that. What has stood out from this Georgia football team to him so far this year?
It starts with line of scrimmage. They've done a good job. Running football, protecting the quarterback. It's typical of them on the offensive line. Got really good skill players too. Defensive line, they're big, they're athletic, and have done a great job against the run, which is typical. And their second level's athletic, do a good job in their pressures, and certainly have good skill out on the third level in their secondary.
All right, so that is Josh Heupel on this game. Damian, I kind of laid out what I think decides this football game. What are you most looking at with Georgia and Tennessee? And are you surprised that so many people are still in the camp of it being this insurmountable feat for Tennessee to even possibly find a way to win this game?
No. I mean, when you look at the game last year, they had the lead for majority of the ball game. And now looking back on it, you start to piece some things together. You kind of look at that quarterback position. You're you're in a better position now with the quarterback than you were last season, because I think Joey Aguilar is not going to be afraid to actually take those shots, and whether he lands them or not. Because the thing is, I remember Tennessee went down to Athens as a number 1 team a couple years ago, and
that one was.
It was a massacre. Like, it was a complete beatdown. Well, now Tennessee seems like they're more equipped for a fist fight. Like, they don't necessarily shy away from it. They can be physical, because we saw last year with Ole Miss and Georgia that if you punch them a few times, they bleed. Like, you can kind of tell. So does Tennessee continue to take that approach? And if they do, it shouldn't be a quote unquote upset or surprise. It's no, like, Tennessee was the better team and they proved it.
Let's just call this what it is here. And I have given Josh Heupel credit for this going into the season, the previous year, not this year, the previous year. He shared with my crew that the offseason emphasis was physicality. The offseason emphasis was bigger bodies. The offseason emphasis was winning games different ways. And I credit him this year for continuing that, continuing to use multiple tight ends, continuing to use more bigger bodies, continuing to emphasize not just the offense on the line of scrimmage, but the defense on the line of scrimmage. And being okay playing that way at times, not just having to be this, oh, we chucked the ball down the field. I mean, he's got like 18 games where they've run for 200 yards, whatever it is, since he's been at Tennessee. It's not like they don't run it. But I do think that there are folks who think that this is, rush yards by disguise or rush yards by default sometimes. And that has changed. There is more of a downhill nature. There's more of using those bigger bodies, tight ends, like Miles Kitselman and company, to go north and south, use them to insert, put them in the line of scrimmage, and be a team that goes right at you. Which, if you think about everything that they do to keep you on your heels, and then they attack you that way, you should have some advantages to be able to do it. But let's call it what it is. This game is a major reason why that emphasis has been brought on. Alabama, probably a big reason why this emphasis has been brought on by the Georgia Bulldogs. Now, you go back to them playing in the East. Like, I doubt I doubt Vanderbilt was a real reason that they said, we better develop this punch, this counter punch, and it's got to be a heavy one. No. We all know better than that. So this is your litmus test. This is your proving ground. This one in the Alabama game that you're going to get most years, that you're going to say, if we can, I will say, what Kentucky has been most years that Josh has faced them, had a little bit of a slide the last two. I think they're back to it this year. It plays into that game as well. Okay. You want to go Mexican street fight rules? You want to go hardcore rules here? We can play that game. We can play that style game. We can survive that fight. It might not be number one. It might not be the way they want to win every game, but you know good and well you're going to have to at least be able to be competitive in that style fight, and this is the one that one's for. So how far have they come? Georgia will test that, and Kirby will sell them on it, and Schumann will sell them on it, and T-Rob will sell them on it, Stacey Searles will sell them on it this week, that they can't do that as well as you can. And that is where your advantage is in this game. They might have receivers and formations, and they may go fast, and they may snap the ball. Your advantage lies when we get tied up. Your advantage doesn't lie dancing around the ring. Your advantage lies when you get them in the corner. They should not be able to survive that. Tennessee's been making the adjustments to say, we can now survive that. So that's what I look at. And you go back to that Bama game a couple years ago that they won. Well, there was two. They threw the ball a lot and won, but in that game last year, it's not like they were airing it out. I mean, that was a physical line of scrimmage game. And they had a few more advantages, and that's why they won. Also, man, I mean, Oklahoma this year going to be one.
Oh boy,
when Oklahoma's on defense, you think about that offensive line. It's played great so far. The test that they're going to get: Georgia, Bama, Kentucky, Oklahoma, Florida. We'll find out how real they are. We're going to find out if that Tennessee offensive line is ready to go, and it looks like they might be. It looks like they are, even with a 5-star that hasn't played this year.
Oh, look how many stars.
I don't know.
Is he still a 5-star?
I don't know if David Sanders makes a difference or plays or is good. I don't know because I haven't seen him. And until we get the tape, we will wait. And we will not judge that one by what the recruiting services do. Greg Hendricks tweets into the show, I hope everyone keeps building Tennessee up and picking them to win. just like the last time everyone picked them to beat Georgia when they were ranked number 1 for 1 week.
Well, things have changed. Because I think people really do forget last season's game. Like, Tennessee went down to Athens and put up a fight. Now, Georgia did claw back, but Dylan Sampson was toting that thing. Like, they were hitting them right where they wanted to. They just didn't have the Jimmies and Joes, and when they needed to execute late in that ball game, they couldn't. But Tennessee, if you really watch them, they will welcome the fist fight. Like, it is now, yeah, it's a lot of glitz and glamour because they spread everything out, but they got a light box. It's not like really an RPO. It's, no, we're going to run the power and see if you can stop it.
That game was 17-17 at the half. Georgia outgained Tennessee 453 to 313. But like you said, Tennessee ran for 146. Georgia ran for 106 in that game. Tennessee turned it over, had 9 penalties. Big portion of why Georgia was able to pull away late. And Georgia had some success in the passing game. Carson Beck, 25 of 40, 347, 2 touchdowns, no picks.
Well, now if Gunnar Stockton has that, then yeah, we're going to be coming in Monday having another discussion.
Carson Beck also had 3 carries for 32 yards and a touchdown.
Sneaky athletic.
Well, if we're going back to the quarterback run part of it and the quarterback's legs, I'll just say too for Georgia, honestly, and this is pretty elementary. This is ground level football. You got to catch the ball. They've had more drop issues this year. That cannot continue. There's no explanation for it. There's no reason for it. We have literal robot jug machines that are spitting footballs out at these guys at rapid rates that can hit pinpoint parts of where they need to catch the ball, and we're dropping passes. And they're not the only ones. We're not going epidemic level just yet.
Not yet.
We're not on slide protection levels just yet. But we are, it's definitely drop season. We haven't reached pandemic level of drops, but it's flu season for drops.
It is.
The season's here.
And the fact that for Georgia, that was kind of your Achilles heel last year, and you thought going into the portal,
I don't get it, man.
We fixed this.
I don't. Y'all need some Theraflu, some Theracatch, or some Nycatch, or some Advocatch, some Tylacatch, something.
And like you said, the gloves that they have nowadays, come on now.
You honestly should never drop a ball.
Never.
The gloves are too good. I've said this for a while. They are way too good. When you got guys catching balls with their fingertips and not even having to pull it to their body to continue the catch, what? Stop. I mean, if Shaq does that, I get it. If Yao Ming does that, okay, fine. Like regular humans shouldn't be able to do that. And we're doing it every week. We had like 5 of those last week. We had like 5 fingertip one-handed catches. Okay. Y'all don't think the gloves are too good, though. I will say this for Georgia. And I think Aaron Murray mentioned this on the show yesterday. Like Noah Thomas has 3 for 24 this year. That was a big get from A&M. That is a big body receiver that adds physicality down the field, that has a giant catch radius, that should be able to go over guys and make catches. Now, Zachariah Branch, 6 for 112 is surprising because he wasn't supposed to really be a receiver. He was supposed to be more of a catch and run guy. Now, Humphreys had the fumble last week. That's going to hurt. He's 6 for 37. He can help you. Love his game. But tight ends, Oscar Delp, 2 for 33. Lawson Lucky, 1 for 6. Are they a bigger part of this matchup? We'll see. All right, more on that game. And then to a different game that we wonder where it will be decided as well in the Southeastern Conference coming up this weekend. That's next right here on Jocks. All right, welcome back in. McElroy and Cubelic in the morning. We're going to switch gears outside of the SEC, go to the Big Ten. Yogi Roth calls Big Ten games on the Big Ten Network, covers that conference, been around that league, has seen some of the teams so far this season. And obviously, Yogi, we're going to start with Wisconsin and Alabama. Let's go to this quarterback situation first and foremost with Danny O'Neal looking like he's going to be the guy. Billy Edwards looks like maybe not going to be available here. What does that do for Jeff Grimes' offense? How does it change maybe what Alabama has to prepare for or be ready for?
Yeah, well, first off, thanks for having me, man. Great to see your text come through and then now get on your show. Appreciate it. Always love watching you all season. You keep thriving per usual, man. And I apologize to your listeners for the noise. I'm in the airport, about to head out to our game. Regarding the question around Wisconsin, breaking out both of those guys is really fun. I've got them next weekend against Maryland, so you kind of get ahead of it a little bit. And Danny O'Neal is a guy who came out to the Elite 11 in high school, was committed to Colorado. Late flip, ends up following the former Colorado OC, Sean Lewis, down to San Diego State last year and starts as a freshman. He balls out in the Mountain West. And then, as he told me this summer, he wanted to get home. It's the personal things going on, get back near where he grew up in the Midwest. And, of course, wanted to play Big Ten ball. And he showed up there, and you watch him in practice. I was there in camp, and he's the same Danny O'Neal. Like, got a little gunslinger mentality. He's got a great confidence, moxie about him, and boom. I think it's late first quarter, week one, he gets thrust into action. And he plays with that same style of, that same personality that he had in high school, that he had at San Diego State. And you'll see it again on Saturday where he's going to rip it, man. I mean, he does not have a bone in his body that's afraid of an environment, right? He's an undersized guy with a massive chip on his shoulder, feels he can make every throw. I mean, he's a fun guy to watch. He's fun to cover. He's fun to study. Everything isn't going to be exactly sequenced up perfectly with an offense. He's going to freelance a little bit within the boundaries of Jeff Grimes' offense, but that's going to be his edge. So he'll be fun to watch. Obviously you want to stay out of some third and long situations, not the biggest, tallest, longest, fastest guy, but he's just a winner. He's got a little fluty magic to him. He's kind of built like him body type wise. And if Billy's able to go, he's a pure pocket passer, mastery of the system. It'll be fun to watch either one of them go. And Grimes' offense is one that's creative. It's based in the run game. Wisconsin feels like they're going to be able to run it better this year than, of course, they did a year ago in a tough year for Luke Fickell's squad. So I think they'll come down with some optimism and hope and see kind of what happens. And I'm hoping it's tight just because I got them next week.
Absolutely. And I think, too, the scheme that you're going to get with some pin and pull stuff and then obviously the stretch play. I said earlier on the show, this is one for Alabama where maybe less about overpowering and imposing your will as to just geographically being sound and being in the right place during this run play, because they can hit you a lot of different places, a lot of different ways. And there are parts of it that make it advantageous for Wisconsin with how it operates. Now, they're not as good as it specifically at running back as we've seen them in the past, but it's one that if Alabama's not at home defensively, there could be some problems. And they're going to give you misdirection off of it also.
Yeah, it's a lot different than it was a year ago when they were founded in the air raid scheme, and we saw that game. And even that first half, outside of that late explosive 2-minute drive, right? Like it's kind of a fun game, at least a fun half to watch, and then it was a rout. I'd say this for what Jeff Grimes does, and I called a game with them last year when he was at Kansas. If you follow them and what they had at running back and quarterback last year, and Jalen Daniels and company, he's gonna challenge you, to your point, and it's gonna be sound. And their linemen, they look different than they did a year ago. Watching Wisconsin a year ago, you're saying, and even Luke Fickell would say it, and we just didn't have the size, the girth, the mass that we're used to. And they went out and changed that. So they're going to force Alabama, to your point, to not just be sound pre-snap, but really be sound communication-wise. And that's the thing that I'm seeing a lot, and I'm sure you are too, for the first couple of weeks. It's all of a sudden, it's a trade pre-snap, and then it's a shift, and then it's a motion, and all of a sudden you're a half step late, and it's a wheel route out the back door. It's a play action, all of a sudden, tight end in the flat. Those are the things that I think are really creative under Jeff Grimes' system. I mean, it's based in West Coast principles. If you want to go back to the day that I know Alex Gibbs and that run game scheme, that's what it's based in. And then it's got wrinkles off of it, which is just fun for anybody who wants to Google Alex Gibbs. He's kind of the godfather of the zone run game. That's what they want to do, and then they'll pull some guys and make it a challenge for you. So you're right, man. Bama's going to have to come play for 4 quarters in that regard, and they're clearly the more talented team. We know that, but we'll see how this thing shakes out because it should be a fun one. And I know Wisconsin all year long they clearly are disappointed, and last year was not the standard in terms of what they've done in Madison for quite a long time, not going to a bowl game. So they'll come down. Bama's going to get their best shot.
Yogi Roth joining us on the Higginbotham Hotline. He calls Big Ten football games. Joining us now to talk Wisconsin, Bama, and a couple others. Defensively, how can Wisconsin cause problems for Alabama's offense?
Well, it's a fun scheme. I'll say that. I think the biggest thing that they're going to have to do is they're going to have to get some penetration into the backfield. They're going to have to. I mean, Alabama and Kalen and that staff and what they want to do offensively. It's to me, they're just going to have to try to see if they could adjust things late. See if they can try to confuse Ty a little bit in the backfield in the pass game, especially on third downs. I mean, it's gonna be a sound outfit, though. I'll say that. Like, I don't know if you're going to see guys screaming wide open down the field. We've seen that at times. Obviously, of course, with Alabama and Kalen DeBoer, they're going to scheme it up as well as a lot of people, just from that standpoint. But I don't know. I think if I'm Wisconsin, I don't know if I'd bring a dramatic amount of pressure. I think it's an aggressive outfit, but I don't know if I want to give Bama gimmies with the explosive playmakers that they have on the outside specifically. So I think you'll probably. I would have a sound game plan and then get exotic when that calls, right? A third down situation, maybe surprise them, in the middle of a drive with something they maybe haven't seen tendency-wise. But I kind of lean in these types of games when you've got the ability to beat the team. You don't want to really hurt yourself and give up a gimme. And, this game, it's all about turnovers and explosives, really. If you break down any game, who wins? They win in those two categories over 90% of the time. So I'd probably stay in that regard. But I wouldn't play off coverage. I wouldn't give free access throws. Like, I try to manipulate the timing a little bit, especially in the pass game.
Yogi Roth joining us on the Higginbotham Hotline, talking some Big Ten football with him. We talked a little earlier in the show, Rogi, about the new national championship odds, some of the rankings, just where teams are. Does Penn State deserve to be getting as little attention as they are with some mild struggles? I feel like they've handled their business. I haven't seen anything alarming, but Oregon, of course, has gone and blown people out, and they're getting a lot of run, and people are talking about how dominant they are and how great they might be. Illinois, maybe a couple of stumbles here or there, so I feel like they're sort of where they should be with a lot of people in their opinions. But is Penn State still being disrespected to a certain extent based on what you think they really are?
Yeah, I'm not familiar with the odds that you just referenced, but just assuming that Penn State's not necessarily favored to win the Natty. I was just there a week ago. I called their game, and again, I'm sorry for the noise here at the airport. I walked away saying, yeah, it wasn't perfect, and also a reminder of what college football was a year ago in the expanded playoff. I called Oregon's opener where they almost lost to Idaho, and they almost lost to Boise in the next game. Notre Dame lost to Northern Illinois in week 2. Ohio State, to me, never really looked the part of the most dominant team in the country until they rolled Tennessee in Columbus. So I just am always urging people, and I even wrote about it. I have a newsletter at yoption.com where it's just like, take a pause. Like, do they have the talent? Yes. Do they have the maturity? Yes. Do they have the coaching acumen? Yes, yes, yes. Do they have the hottest defensive coordinator in the country they got in Jim Knowles last year? Yes. Do they have, next level game wrecker players? I think Dennis Sutton and Zane Durant are the best duo at edge and tackle in the country. I think they're both first-round picks, and they move them all over the D-line. They've got speed, physicality, experience all over that team. They bring back, depending on how you spin it, 14 all-conference players, 20-ish starters, depending if you want to include a specialist here or there. So, yeah, man, I think they are 100% capable of winning it all. I think they'll be in the mix, and that'll be the fun part of the playoffs. I think it's going to take a mature team to win 3 or 4 in a row, and then you add in a conference title game if you're in that. I mean, it's just a challenging run. I think it's harder to predict now than ever. And we live in the world of college football where every weekend the sky is falling, right? Like Alabama, football was seemingly over 2 weeks ago, right? Like, oh my gosh. And then they roll a non-con. If they get a win this weekend, here comes the tide. And that's just how it works. Now, the Ducks, to me, they're not getting any play. And maybe that became the narrative because, over the weekend, I don't think I've ever seen anybody put it on a Power 4 opponent the way they did. Guys were screaming. I talked about screaming wide open against Mike Gundy's team. I mean, the scheme, the execution. I think Dante Moore is the best quarterback in the country, and I get he's only started 2 games. But if you study him and you watch him, I think it's hard-pressed to not at least put him in that conversation. So I think the Ducks are better than they were a year ago, and they went undefeated in Big Ten conference play. So whatever that means, I think there's a lot of talent out here in the Big Ten all across the country in that conference. And at the end of the year, they're going to have to face each other. And you know how it works. It's 3 snaps a game, whatever it might be, a play here, a penalty not called here. Like that's just what college football in the playoff has become, which is going to be great, I think, for the game. And lastly on Illinois, I mean, that was an impressive win against Duke. When they dominated that game after the first quarter and a half. You go back and you really study the things they're doing. James Thompson on the defensive line, he's as impressive a D tackle through the first couple games of the season as you'll find in America. Gabe Akis, he's got a little Abdul Carter coming off the edge for them. So that could come back for a real purpose. Luke Altmaier, who I know your listeners know from his time in the SEC, he's got confidence, he's got mastery, he's clear between his ears, he's never felt better. And they got a great game next week against Indiana, so we'll see really how it shakes out with 2 teams that I think are suitably under the radar.
Okay, hold on one second. I got to go back to something that we just said there. You're saying you truly believe Dante Moore deserves to be in the conversation as best quarterback in America?
I sure do.
Okay. I watched this last one. He looked good. Like you said, though, there were some things that were not necessarily covered by Oklahoma State. Run game helped a lot. I like the offensive line. I thought we were all going to love Isaiah World. The kid from Texas State on the other side might be better.
Pretty good. Yeah, he's pretty good, man. Well, I'll say this about Dante, just for context on him. Like, this is a guy who came out of Detroit, Michigan, obviously a big-time recruit, but didn't kind of come up like a lot of these quarterbacks do, where, you got, like, the greatest, you're personally coached every single day, every second. Like, he's a guy who was a little bit raw at elements in the position, came to UCLA, balled because he's a gamer, but then also, and I always say this, even for the freshmen or the first-time starters, everything is still in college for the first time. Meaning the first time he went and played Utah, he threw a pick 6 on his first play. A lot of people, I feel like, can't erase that memory, but that's going to happen to young guys. I think every quarterback needs scars. He had them. And I can remember talking to him after that freshman year. He sat across from me, and we just talked about how he wanted to go learn the craft. And I just think there's a maturity there in this era where there's so much money and so much pressure of you got to go play and be the guy. He was like, I want to go learn how to be the guy. I'm going to go really learn offense in a pro-style system, and I'm going to go to learn from Will Stein and learn behind Dylan Gabriel and learn from Bo Nix and Justin Herbert when they come back. And then being up there a couple of weeks ago and in the spring game, I mean, I went to their staff, and I know they didn't name a guy, and I go, I don't know if there's a better one that you've had here. And they've had 2 guys that went to New York. I just think his ceiling's really high. I think his arm talent is as good as there is in the country. There's a lot of talented quarterbacks. I love loving on them all. But I think he's got something really unique to him. They've got the supporting cast, talent, scheme, conference, all the things that you need. But, man, I think he's worthy of it. I said in the preseason, it caught a bunch of people, I think, by, off guard because he wasn't even in the starter. And I think we'll just kind of see him continue to thrive as the year goes on.
It reminds me of something that Brian Kelly said the year that Jaden Daniels won the Heisman. We had him earlier in the year. And he's like, I told him, like, I want you to throw an interception. And Jaden kind of looked at him like, what? And he said, well, until you go out there and make a mistake, you're not going to realize that it's okay to make a mistake. So go throw the pick and then realize we're going to go out there for another series and we're going to throw more touchdowns and you're going to get more yards and you're going to have more receivers open. But, yes, it can happen, but it's okay if it happens. You're not going to shoot your shot until you realize, we're going to get past this. It's no big deal. And he did, and then he went on to win the Heisman. So it's all great points by you. And
that, and not to cut you off, but that's what's going to happen at Penn State. Like, I don't know if Oregon's going to go win in Happy Valley in a couple of weeks. It's going to be bonkers. It's going to be whiteout, expectations, rematch the Big Ten title game. Drew Aller's a hell of a player, too. He might throw a pick to lose the game. But that is the game. Let me leave you with this. Danny O'Brien, the quarterback coach at Penn State, did this, and I thought it was phenomenal. He sat with Drew Aller over the summer, and they watched call it a 100-play cut-up of Josh Allen. Good, bad, and different, right? Picks, fumbles, touchdowns, great epic runs, highlight plays. And at the end, the last slide was he won the MVP. And it was like, you can't get away at this position playing perfect. It's never going to happen. And I think in the world of college, like, of course, every Alabama fan wants Ty Simpson to be perfect. No one more than Ty. He's not going to be. And that's just kind of the nature of the craft. So the more we accept that, then I think the more enjoyable the game is for everybody. And then the growth happens for the respective player.
Absolutely. Yogi, great stuff, man. Thanks for the time. Definitely appreciate it. And look forward to doing it again soon. Have a good call this weekend.
Hey, you too, bro. Later.
All right. Yogi Roth on Big Ten football. A lot to get to there, a lot to marinate on. Dante Moore in the category as best quarterback in college football. He's looked good. I watched Oregon last night. I was impressed with a lot of it, but that's high praise. With the quarterback class we have this year, we'll see. We wrap it up next on Mac and Cube in the morning. All right, welcome back in. McElroy and Cubelic in the morning. Final segment of the show before we turn it over to three-man front. Then Paul Feinbaum. Keep it locked here on Jocks all day long. Game Day Men's Health wants to help you feel better. If you're lacking sleep, lacking energy, go to GameDayMen'sHealth.com right now. Fill out the free consultation form. Go get that free consultation with a free PSA test, free testosterone test, and they'll get you back to feeling great. Weight loss programs, peptides, all in stock now. Go to GameDayMen'sHealth.com. Now open in Trustville. A couple quick bad box scores of the day for you. JUCO football, Iowa Central Community College.
They're just the Hawks.
Took out the Central Lakes College Brainerd. They're the Raiders, 77-0.
Okay. Was I right on Hawks?
Yeah. Kilgore College took out Community Christian College. We've had them before. This was week 1, 80-0.
That's fair.
No.
Well, I mean, after 94-0 and then 2000-0.
And Saturday, Hutchinson Community College over New Mexico Military Institute,